unspeakable crime, murder at midnight. A deal I made, a life I had to take. Someone I love once held so tight. The screams will follow me, cries of my ancestors said, go away. My operator, fasting in grain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hiding inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. This form I desire, innocent blood I will devour. Ancestors gathering round the dwelling, the spirit inhabiting, evil enveloping, the dancing graves in the night, the spirit occupying and transforming, stolen heights, dark practices, my secret life, feathered outers, mysticism, intriguing, my operator, fasting in grain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hiding inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same. Give me the ability to hide in plain sight, so no one can see me, not even in the light. I am the crawler, I'm a within, I'm nobody's friend. This initiation is all part of the dark creation. My desires performing incantations. I walk in disguise. If I catch you, it's your demise. Shamanism, my religion, summoning spirits, manifesting myself and changing my flesh. A nightmare to behold. I'ma make you part of the fold. The skin of a man, the soul of a predator. The change is complete. This thing I become, my flesh has succumbed. My operator, fasting in grain, shape-shifting. I feel the animal hiding inside me. I feel the change. I feel the change coming. We are one but not the same.
Change inside of me. The inner human slowly dead in me. I feel it come alive. The darkness brings me light. There ain't no stopping it, and you will never hide from me. Pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night, ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time. entombed for 3,000 years, wrapped growing in me. I have lived an eternity, suspended in darkness. Release me. Condemned and bound, the sands of time have run out. Curse fills the room, curiously open my tomb. Rising from the cradle of death, my sentence has come to an end. Release me, wasting and running. Release me. My curse is your curse, death is the gift I bring. Revenge in my hands, I feel no remorse. This is the mommy's curse. Release me.
Okay, all right, folks. How's everybody doing tonight? It's Wednesday. Oh, my gosh! So apparently, the gym that I'm going to, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to do tonight. A lot. So many encounters to go. I was poring over reports today. Thank you for that donation. I appreciate it. We really, really, really do. So let me get this set up here. Takes me a little longer. I'm not as tech savvy as my cohorts. My cohorts are a little bit better at this than me, so my job is to disseminate the information, read reports, talk to people, get their stories, whatever I got to do. That's my part. That's my job, and I got to tell it to you. And hopefully it comes out, cool, I guess. I don't know how you want to say it. Christ is king. Yes, he sure is. Absolutely. Yeah, it's my Punisher shirt. See, it's got the logo. Like he's wearing the shirt. He's wearing the logo on that. So that was pretty cool. I've always liked Punisher a lot too. It's got real popular, over the last couple of decades. But I've liked Punisher since when it first I had Punisher #1 and Punisher War Journal #1. So. Reading some of the comments here. There we go. Oh, folks. Okay, so we're waiting for the chat to fill up because it will. We have a lot going on. God, where do I start? Okay, so tonight's episode, obviously, we didn't know what to call it. We weren't real sure I mean, you can say, hey, this was a Wendigo. These were Dogman. I don't know. What is it? And what are they? What is a Dogman? We're still kind of, it's kind of up in the air, But I can say this. Last night, I don't know if anybody noticed, I was trying to get on to TikTok. I didn't have time, folks. I didn't, because right after the live, I ended up having something that happened, not right after, but when I was about ready to do it. And by that point, I was dealing with something. And then I ended up getting relieved, but I got relieved late. And so I had to go and I had to finish up the patrol, so that took up the rest of my time, and then go work out. And I did legs, and legs is brutal. And my workout is brutal on legs. So, when I do legs, I feel like I have to do a certain number of reps, and I do that. So, how's it going? Did you lock the door?
Yeah, it's all locked up.
I know some people still wandering around right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if we hear a noise, and there's nobody next door, but if we hear a noise, maybe until about 9, there'll be people in the building. But it'll wait until they're gone, and then start knocking. Bless you.
Thank you.
Oh, I figured it out. I'll sit here looking going, what am I doing here? And I'm happy to announce that we are growing too. So the TikTok thing just gonna, I'm gonna try maybe do one tomorrow or something, maybe one tonight if I have time, just so I can get it going. But it's hard. It's hard because I'm really busy. So right now, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we had this other contract going. So I got to tell these people real quick. Let me see if I can get these notes up here. Mm-hmm. All right. That should be it right there. This coffee is cold and it wasn't meant to be. Evan Tabaldo says, when are you on Rumble? Whenever we just kind of feel like it, we just kind of go over there.
Yeah, Rumble is just kind of random.
Because a lot of people don't want to go over there, but we may end up having to make that. I mean, I'm not saying right now, but it may end up becoming a bigger player in all of this.
Yeah.
Because we just getting really sick of the mass reporting. It gets old. The people doing it actually brag about it. And so it's really happening. And we're getting sick of them disrupting everything. But, I had a talk with an old friend yesterday. This is how I'm going to start right now. And he asked me a question. He says, man, you're taking some heavy criticism and some heavy fire. And he goes, and you can't, this isn't the old days. I mean, these people, you can't go and personally confront these people. They're not just at a club or a bar down the street. These people are, 1-2 states over. And so they have that feeling of safety, and so like Mike Tyson said, the internet has made people real comfortable with saying things that they would normally not say. You wouldn't say that to my face, but you're going to say it, and you're going to do it in person of me because you're down in Texas. You're right, Mike. I wouldn't. Mike Tyson's in your face. You're going to be like, hey, you know what?
You don't have a lisp.
You sound incredible. And you look amazing
And
for being
the
almost
tattoo
60.
on your face is just beautiful.
So, you might not, say something stupid, right? So, I don't know. It's made people like, and Orem says, man, I used to leg press like 4. Yeah. My squat, dude, I say used to, I actually can still squat quite a bit, but my wife has said no. She does not want me
Yeah, she don't want you maxing out.
Yeah, no more videos of squatting and benching, because for what? Proving it to who? Who am I proving it to? That's the thing. I mean, people do these ridiculous, they say these ridiculous, I'm going to go run out and prove it to them. Oh, I'll show you. For what? These people are in the waste bin of irrelevancy. I don't need to. Tony said, YouTube needs to be better. And then D says, I wish they were in Austin. No, you don't, because then that would be problems that we don't need, because we'd be tempted to do, go and confront them.
I thought he was talking about a band.
No, he's talking about these people. I don't see no band up there. Problem. You would be, be getting into trouble, fights and stuff like that. I mean, these people aren't going to fight. I mean, they hide behind their computer. But it happens to everybody, because my friend was telling me that his mother has a cooking channel. I don't know the name of it. We didn't get to stay on very long. And she's in Germany. And he was telling me that she's doing a cooking channel. She's like 75 years old. She said, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And he said that there are these other old ladies that are, messing with her. And the oldest one of these women is 82 years old, and she's talking trash and messing with her about her channel. Can you imagine being 82 years old and you're feuding with another person about cooking, and you're saying the worst things that you can think of online, and then you suddenly,
Geraldine doesn't even know how to cross stitch. she couldn't even sew up her nephew's jeans.
next thing you know, you kill
Useless
over.
old biddy.
Because when you kill over, and that's not what I'm laughing about, but imagine the shock when you didn't forgive, you didn't love, you didn't do what you're supposed to do. So last night while I was working out, I had, and it wasn't like an epiphany. I just had the thought came into my head. I was like, I don't hate these people. I don't hate you. I don't even hold. They've said, and they continue to say the worst things that can come out of their mouths. And all I do is just think, don't care. It's just, new people that come into this are going like, what is going on here? Why these people? Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. Every day before I go to sleep, I release any anger, any negativity, and close those spiritual openings that you have. You have to, because if you don't, it's gonna rot you. It's gonna eat at you. And then, God forbid, something happens to you. And then what happens? And you're sitting there before the Lord. What are you going to do? And even those that don't believe in God, there's still consequences, right? You do believe in consequences, right? It's just going to happen. You don't just do what you want and do what thou wilt, right? Because that is what these people do, and that's like a satanic thing. People that do these, they do these. Whatever you want to call it, like just do whatever they want to do all the time. It's a satanic thing you're doing. And you're not supposed to do what you will. Right? That's not what we're here for. And so anyway, that, you got to try to do what's right. So he was talking to me, and he was talking about his mother's channel and whatever, and we didn't get really too far into it. But he just said, keep your chin up. He goes, I know you, and the people that know you in your real life, we know you. We've known you forever. And we know who you are and what you can do and what you can't do. And these people are just crazy. And I try to keep as many people out of this as possible, because I don't want everybody, it doesn't need to be everybody's problem, because you don't want this problem, believe me. But here's the thing. I want everybody to understand something. Last night, when I was doing the live stream, That was not at first. We had the podcast with.
Well, that was supposed to just be like a short story.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't a story. That wasn't a story.
Well, I mean, like it was supposed to be just like a short encounter, though, right?
Mm-mm.
Well, that's what it was titled. Or
that's not what it was. That was to get people to go over to TikTok to hear the encounter.
Yeah.
And it was just that's all that was, and it was just an impromptu thing. And you didn't know that I was going on. No, neither did Nelly. Nobody did. I just was like, I had said,
I just saw it pop up, and then like I see you talking, and then like. It turns into like this, basically you putting on a clinic on like how to get a story from someone because like you're just sitting there at work, and then like the bartender from the hotel walks.
Have you ever met her before?
I never met her.
Me neither.
I mean, I think I've seen her there before, but I never met her.
I've never even seen her.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw her last night behind the bar, and I didn't even speak a word to her. I just knocked on the glass. She smiled and came and let me in.
She walked up like talking about all the problems with the homeless people.
No. When I first went in, I'll tell you what happened. Let me tell you. So, so what happened was I went in to use the restroom, and I talked to the not maintenance, the cleaning or whatever, because I saw him in there, and he was walking around, and I think that's what he does. I don't even know, but he was telling me about staying at the hotel, a couple nights when it got really cold. He ended up, during the freeze.
Yeah.
And he gave me a story. Now we've had people that work in those hotels, both of those hotels, two of them together, and they've given us stories. So he saw me coming out of the restroom, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, so he didn't sit there and tell me the story. He just said, "I'm going to message you my information, and then I'll send it to you." I said, "Okay, cool." So that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. His name is Danny. And so when I walked out, I just said thanks to the lady behind the bar, which her name is Karen.
Yeah.
And we didn't speak. And so I went back out to my well, it was not a truck, an SUV. And I was sitting there, and I just, while I was talking, about different stuff, she came up, and it started out, she was talking about the crime.
Yeah.
Because it's heavily crime-ridden area.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because it's not a bad area.
No, there's just like homeless camps there. Well, I mean, there's one in particular.
And then there's a foundation property that's full of homeless
it's
people.
A low income.
And it's a low income. And there's a lot of people and there's refugees there too. And it's just a bad mix, and it creates a lot of issues, a lot of problems. So that last night, go back and look, because she started talking about all these paranormal things, because I told her I'd do a paranormal show, and I'm doing a live right now. And you came up and started to tell me about what was going on Saturday. And so I told her, I said, this is what I'm doing. And then it led into, getting a bunch of encounter stories from her. Now we have her information. Yeah, her experiences. And we have her information now, so we can interview her and retell them for her. Yeah. Or she can tell them, whatever. But it's just a thing where it's like that just happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to be, a show. It was supposed to be, hey, I'm going to be going on to TikTok, and meet me over there. And then it turned into that.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was cool. You kind of put it on the spot. I mean, like, you didn't feel that way, but like anyone else would have kind of felt like put on the spot, like pressured to, I don't know, like do something. But you got like, you basically showed how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just got her talking about all these paranormal experiences, and it's like that's where the encounters come from, from people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting because when she started talking about the devil's backbone, I was like, oh my gosh, like that, like I said, that's the first area that we researched, was like where we really did a lot of work back in the old days. Me and my brother, it was that backbone,
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stories from that area. But it was cool because it was like, she kind of confirmed what we've been saying about the crime and the homeless people. And we're not joking.
And then she lived out there at the Devil's Backbone.
And then she lived out the Devil's Backbone, and she confirmed what we've been saying about that area. And of
Mhm.
course, it's been on Unsolved Mysteries. There's a bunch of people who've talked. It's not like it's a big secret. That's not, but it confirms what we've been saying. She lived off Purgatory Road. And then she was talking about she didn't feel safe going outside at night, even though, you're out in the country, you should feel safe.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't feel safe if I was living out there near the Goat
Mm-mm.
Man and the Black Dog and all that
Yeah.
stuff that's
That
out
old
there.
cemetery from the
That
1800s.
yeah, that old cemetery where the Black Dog comes running out, and she knew about all that. And what this, like I said, it's not a big secret. If you go out there, there's people from, especially the older people. It's more grown up now, but there's still like the Haunted Valley. It's still there. I mean, I wouldn't want to sleep out there and be out there, and I did. I camped out there. I did. And man, it was weird. So Summerside of Life says, Wolf, Josh, not sure if you sent Jason by an email with the place you get your shirts and caps. Yeah, I'll get with him for sure and talk to him about that. I need to go ahead and do some other things to get that completed too. So we are still doing the giveaways, but now we are out of XL. We're running low on mediums and larges, and we have 2X and 3X. I think all we got left is 4X, I think is what we got.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to re-up. And so we're going to, but it may take a little bit of time. So and so we're getting some people in here. Here's what we got tonight. We're going to tell Zaina's story, and I want to get as many people in here as possible. My eyes have been burning, dude. I got this. As I got old, they told me it was going to happen when you get, you scar tissue all up in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just starting to weigh heavy on my freaking face. Like it's getting, as I get older, it's, when you're young, you don't think they tell you you're going to have arthritis in your hands, and then you're going to have this scar tissue that's going to start to bubble up, And it's just part of getting old. What can you do? Just like you just got to deal with it. There's nothing you can do. And I got this side right here, and on this side right here, I've had my eyebrows opened up.
The cost of fighting.
Yeah, right there. You can see it too. It's pronounced. Try to hide it, but there ain't no hiding it, man. It's just, it is what it is.
I mean, even if you win every fight, there's still a price to pay.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. I'm lucky. I'm fortunate because back in the day, I could bob and weave pretty good, and I didn't get hit as much as a lot of guys. Man, there's some people that just, they just get their face tore up. We got some friends that just got tore up doing all that. So we got all this information, we got all these stories, and then last night I was talking with this Karen, and she Karen's her name. She's not a Karen. Her name was Karen, and she started telling us about a bunch of stuff, and then she started telling me about a bunch of stuff the stories that she had. You all right? Hang on one second. Oh. And Liberty says, Wolf, I get it. Got to have my eyelids lifted this summer, can barely see, and it's, at one time I had this eye right here, it was so swollen, and it's been pronounced lately, and I had to have it, the what do you call that? Like it was swolled up when I got into a fight, and they stuck a needle, and I was like really apprehensive about them putting that in me. And I said, look, you could poke my eyeball. And so but they had to get that to get the swelling out. So they pulled a bunch of blood and stuff out of it, and then you could see, but it's taken its toll And today, in the last few days, in the last couple of weeks, it's been really bothering me. But your eyes, it makes your eyes burn and whatever. But so last night we were at the gym, and I'm gonna start with this, and now we got over 300 people in here. So there's a lady that works here. She's from the Caribbean, right? And she told us, that she had seen some weird stuff. But last night, we got in the gym late. We were trying to beat the crowd because about there at 4:00 they start pouring in there. It's a pretty busy gym, and so she told us that she had seen something in the woman's restroom, right? She told us she had seen this black, well, I mean, she didn't call it an imp-like thing, but the way she described it, that's what it was to me. And I was like, wow. And so I looked at Anthony and I was like, and then I looked at her and I said, I wasn't going to say anything, but I saw something in that red light therapy area. And she goes, I see stuff in that area all the time. Yeah. So there's something there. There really is something there. I knew I wasn't just crazy. I was like, I know I saw something. But yeah, so she was like, there's something there for sure. Yeah.
The part of the gym does feel kind of weird. It's kind of like cut off and isolated.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of off too. The energy feels off.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. And my Uncle Jimmy told me this, that he used to come to Cedar Park, and this was where a lot of really poor people lived because it was cedar trees. Now it's considered like a nice area, and it was at one time in the last few years one of the fastest growing cities in the country until it just got to where they couldn't build it up anymore, And so there were these logging camps here. There were cedar camps, right? And this is one of the stories I'm going to get into eventually too. In fact, go ahead and text this to me. Maybe I can tell this one on Sunday. We can decide. Yeah. So the cedar camps, they used to chop cedar. And when I was growing up in Taylor, the area around Taylor is one side is really nice farmland, and the other side is a mixture of farm and ranch land. That's all it is ranches and farms or hybrids. And so we growing up in Taylor, when you thought of Cedar Park or Leander, and especially Cedar Park, you just thought that's cedar choppers. They're kind of transient people that just chop trees and whatever. So I'm not going to get into it today, but I will do that story maybe on Sunday. We'll talk about this because there was a guy who had a story from the old days. Because we have had several people now, I think 7, actually, we counted 7. And I'm thinking there might be 1 or 2 more that I got to find. But I dug out 7 reports from Cedar Park and Leander that were given directly to us, not just ones that I plucked from somewhere else. And these were sent to us from people from here. And those are just the Dogman reports. There's not those that don't count the Bigfoot, weird ghosts and crawlers. So we started talking about it last night, and it was weird because that area of Cedar Park was where those camps were. My Uncle Jimmy was like, he'd come to Cedar Park with my Uncle James, which was my grandfather's brother. Mm-hmm. And I call him Uncle Jimmy. He's technically my dad's first cousin, but he's always been like an uncle to me, so I just call him Uncle Jimmy. And my dad grew up with him and my Uncle Butch like they were his brothers. So it was just like they all were real close, and Bobby, Jimmy, Butch. And so I've always, been pretty close to them. And whenever he was talking to me one day about it, he said, I remember going up there as a kid, and they were always like ruffians. It was just a bunch of roughneck people, very transient people that just chop trees all day. That's what they did. Mm-hmm. And the camps were full of, it was like just people drinking and knife fighting, and it was a pretty rough trade. And so there was violence, there was all kinds of things. And I've heard these stories, growing up over the years, even when I was young as a teenager or whatever, it was like Cedar Park, ooh, brother, ooh. Why there, brother? Meth, crack, death. Loose women. The last part's okay, but the rest, no, brother. But you know, you know what I'm saying? Like they were just like, it was like, don't go there. It's just, why? They were a different breed. And I remember in a time where Leander had a pretty damn good football team. They started getting, because they were still kind of, that they were starting to come out of that dark ages, still pretty rough, poor, but then they were starting to get this influx of a little bit of money. So they were like, hey, let's put some money into this program. And so Leander had a pretty good program. And then Cedar Park caught up and they started doing good. And, because everybody started moving there. And now you're living there and you're going like, I'm hearing stuff and seeing stuff. And I thought maybe it's just me. But no, I talked to my neighbors and they hear and see stuff too. And I think the whole city does. I think it's just because I guarded those places. So weird is that where the house we used to live, I used to guard that area when it was being built. Mm-hmm. And I guarded the area because the same company had those contracts. And they're not super far from one another. So, several miles, but they're not that. There were like 4 big subdivisions that were being built. Now we're living. And so, I guarded these places for this company that had them. I think it was called Crown. I worked for 2 or 3 different companies, rather statewide than Crown. But these companies that I don't even know if they're still around. I know statewide is, and the Crown only are still around. I know the owner passed away years ago. His name was Brad. But it was a rough area. And then those cedar camps got cleared out and they started selling the land for tract housing to ease the housing burden that was in Austin. And then they built the mall and everything else. And I guarded the mall when it was being built. And those workers were telling me weird stories. Some of the workers, I was getting some stories from them. When they built Lakeline Mall, I was there when they were doing security. When I was doing security for it, I was there at one point, and I worked it for a while. And I remember there was nothing but cedar trees all the way around it. There wasn't no apartments, all that stuff. That wasn't there. They're still building apartments next to it, still. And they unearthed these bones. And they said, well, it was a bobcat skull. They came in, they brought it out. And I said, well, what was it doing buried underneath a bunch of wood? It was buried, like at the base of a tree underneath a pile of wood. And the bones were laid out in a particular way. And then when they unearthed it, weird stuff started happening at that mall, which I still can attest to the fact that one and Barton Creek, especially in the back, in those hallways, it is so creepy, dude. When we get a contract to go work at the mall, I'm always like, I love just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah, because it gives me time to do stuff, just got to do your rounds and do your job. And it's pretty easy. What's going to happen as long as you lock the back door and the front door's got that cage? Yeah. Was somebody going to stick their fingers in it? I don't know. It's kind of like, well, time to relax. Money. It's easy money, right? And then you start hearing weird stuff at the doors and stuff. And I've had this happen to me. And I go and I look and I'm like, what the hell was that? There's nothing back there. So tonight's story, very similar, and it was Zaina. And now I got to tell the story of the Mountain of Death too. She has a story about the Mountain of Death. She's from the Samai people. Some people call them the Sami people, but she says Samai. But she says the Samai people, that is her dad's people or her mother's people. And she was raised by her mother because her dad passed away while her mother was pregnant with her. So he was killed on an oil rig, unfortunately. And her dad and her mother met overseas. And so, and he was an American. And so her mother named her after her great grandmother, Zina. And if you don't know what the Samai people are, they are people that live in Finland and in Russia. Now, a lot of them live in Russia. They're a type of Laplander. Now, people get confused. They'll be like, Laplanders are Samai. No, Samai are Laplanders because there's different types of Laplanders. There are Laplanders that have Tartar blood. And there are Laplanders who are, they have like this Kamchatka blood, different region, right? Yeah. And then there are those that are from Finland, and they have their own type of, whatever. Her family was from Finland, but they were pushed out after the Winter War. This is her grandmother's people. They were pushed out after the Winter War, which happened in 1940 and 41, I believe. Look that up to make sure I'm right about that. Then it went between Russia and Finland, the Soviet Union in Finland. It was the Soviet Union at that time. And it was a land grab on the Soviet Union's part. They were expansionists supreme, and they were communists. And so Finland was fighting for its right to be there. And there was a place called the Mountain of Death. And in that region...
Took place from 39 to 40.
39 to 40, okay. I thought it was 39 to 41, but I think 41. And then 41, though, wasn't that Operation Barbarossa because Finland joined at 1941?
No, let me see.
I think it was June of 1941 was Operation Barbarossa. Finland was in Army Group A.
It began on June 1941.
1941, June 1941, Operation Barbarossa, the biggest land invasion to date, still to this day. Some idiot tried to argue me the other day, and he said, no, Desert Storm was the biggest operation. I said, no, it wasn't. He kept on. I was like, no, it wasn't, dude. And this dude wasn't even in the military at all. He's trying to argue with me about it. I said, oh, dude, I'm a savant with that stuff. Don't try. And so we kind of got into it, and I just got off the Facebook. I'm like, whatever, man. Okay, whatever, Dad. And I got off. And he called me and said, why are you arguing with me? I'm joking. It wasn't my dad. It was just some guy. And so we ended up having, words about it. When he goes, oh, I'm from, Poland. And I'm like, so? You still don't know history. I don't care where you're from, dude. He said, my family's Polish or some crap. And I said, well, my family's Cossack, and they beat the crap out of yours and everyone else's. So it doesn't matter. But the point is that it was Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in history. And her grandparents, her grandfather, Zaina's grandfather, she's a bit older than me, but her grandfather fought for the Finnish army. And I'm going to say this, and people might get offended. I don't care. But there really was no difference between, at that time, this is the truth. I'm not even joking. Chile, Argentina, Spain, and Finland all had the same exact uniforms as the Germans. That's a true thing. Go look up their military uniforms. It's the helmets, the everything. Like they had the same tailors, basically. Hugo Boss.
Yeah.
It was Hugo Boss. They were snappy dressers, right? Okay. And so they got copied a lot, right? And if you look at their uniforms, the Finnish people were just like, man, well, we like what you got going on there. That's some style. We're going to use that. And they did. And their big enemy was the Soviets because they had just fought a 2-year war where they had lost land. So they were involved in Operation Barbarossa. They dedicated thousands and thousands of soldiers. Yeah, it was the Prussian style originally, but the Wehrmacht changed during World War I. They moved from that Prussian style to a more Bavarian style, and then it was kind of a mixture. It was a melding. They didn't have the pith helmet. They didn't have the spike anymore, which was really kind of cumbersome because it was a little bit heavy, and you had to wear your helmet just right or it would move. And it was just for looks. And when you have something like this sticking up at the top, it made you an easier target. And so they went and they used this helmet that covered the ears. And these other armies, they hated, Germany so bad because they got their ass beat by them. So they basically they would purposely make their helmets look different than theirs, like these balls on their head or these weird bowl-shaped shit or whatever. When obviously it was the best style because it protected the head and it was compact and it protected the ears. It wasn't about style. It was really just about what is the word I'm looking for? It was pragmatic, right? So anyways, this her family, they were from Finland and they fought for the Germans. It is what it is, and they fought against the Soviets because they looked at them as the greatest threat to the world, which was communism. And if you look up Operation Barbarossa, it was over 3 million people, 3 million soldiers from like 11 different countries. Yeah. It was a crusade. It wasn't just the evil German Nazis going in there and blah, blah, blah. That's not true. That is not true. Yes, or function over fashion. But anyways, she had this helmet in her house, and she believed that it was haunted. And it was from a deceased Finnish soldier. And in fact, she thought for years that it was her grandfather's helmet. It wasn't. It was her grandfather's friend. He had brought back his remains, and it wasn't just a friend, it was a person that lived in their village, that was raised with them and was treated like an uncle to her mother. And so it was, she thought, oh, this is okay. It's my grandfather's spirit. And then one day she sees this man who, just for all intents and purposes, just looks like a German soldier walking around her house, but it's actually a Finnish soldier. They had the exact same uniforms. And she was just like, what is this guy doing in my house? And she went to go talk to them, and he was gone. It was like, whew, he was gone. Keep that in mind, because that's going to come into play later in the story. So this encounter that she had, it was a series of encounters. She moved with her husband, right, to Saskatchewan, because her mother migrated to America, obviously with her husband, and for years and years and years they lived in Michigan or Wisconsin. They lived in Wisconsin, and her mother remarried a native guy. He was a native. Now it's interesting because the Samai people are actually the natives. They're Laplanders, and they're sort of Asiatic. I don't know how to describe them. They look like white people, but a little bit Asian, kinda, and so they have the high cheekbones, whatever. And they make beautiful jewelry, by the way. I'm not even joking. So anyways, they ended up, she moved and she married a guy from Wisconsin. He was a Chippewa. And one of my best friends, Phil, that I grew up with, or not grew up with, but I came up with years ago back in the day, big, tall guy. He's a native and he's Chippewa. And we were friends. We've been friends for over 20 years. And so, and I have another friend who's a Chippewa too, and a couple that are Menominee. My friend's mother-in-law, she's a Menominee. His ex-wife is half. She's full on half, Menominee, same region. But that Chippewa in her, she said, my mother remarried, and so she was raised to have these beliefs, like these very native beliefs, going back to her mother's people, going back to her, her stepdad who raised her. That was the only dad she ever knew, because her dad was killed on an oil rig. And so it was in the North Sea, no less, which has got to be brutal. But yeah, it was really, really a bizarre upbringing when she was telling me the things, how she was raised. And she knew what to look for. And she learned about these legends, not only from the Chippewa and their stepdad, but the legends that she brought over her mother. They had these legends of these creatures. And there's one whose name I'm not even going to pronounce because I'll probably mess it all up. But it was, I guess I could take a crack at it. Thacardica. Okay. Anyway, I'm not even, okay. Let's not even make ourselves look stupid here. It was this creature that would stalk around on the mountain. And this mountain is interesting because there's all these dead trees that have been there for hundreds of years. I'm not even joking. The place is like dead. And there's a legend, there's a story behind it, that during the Winter War, and I'm not going to get into the whole story, I can tell you the story, but it takes too long. They found over 100 dead Soviets, and nobody knows how they died. They just know that they went crazy shooting at something, but something killed them. It looked like they were all ripped apart. So that's the legend, that's the story. And the Finnish soldiers found them there. They conceded that, and then they took the land back during Operation Barbarossa. By 1944, with the Allies' supplies and America's entering into the war and helping the Soviets, eventually the Finnish were pushed back, and then they lost some of their territory too. To this day, they still have not gotten it back. The Soviets confiscated over 100 miles into their territory, along with 12 other countries. They just robbed them. Go look it up. It's called the Iron Curtain. They literally took land, thousands and thousands of miles of land from like a dozen countries. Never gave it back. So good old communism, right? But anyway, and they were originally invaded. Don't make no mistake. The Finnish were not the aggressors. And then they went, paid them back, and then the Soviets paid them back, and then just keeps going. So anyway, she's got this helmet, and so her and her fiance decide that they're going to move to Canada, right? Because she stayed with her family in Finland, way up in the north, and she fell in love with the isolation and the cold. This is weird, man. I'm not even joking. She fell in love with the isolation and the cold, which she told us. She said, this is something that, you know, I didn't think that I would ever enjoy or get used to, but I did. She's like, and my mother's people, they taught me how to ice fish. They taught me all these skills. So they moved to this lake. Now it's the same area that Aaliyah is from. And I can't remember the name of the lake, and I honestly don't have the thing right in front of me. It's a lake in that's not important, but the lake is in Saskatchewan. I could look it up, but it's not important. It's the same lake. Go look up the episode with Aaliyah. But get this. They're neighbors, right? They're neighbors, but they're like 40 miles away from each other. Yeah, pretty desolate. So it's a very desolate area in the north up there. And it's like, if you look at this area, it's just, there's lake after lake after lake, but in this particular lake, there's another one that's kind of smaller adjacent to it. She lived kind of in between those. And it says here, somebody says, V says, Tsarist Russia controlled Finland. Finland allied with the Third Reich to separate from the Soviets. Yeah, because they had their land taken after the Winter War. Yep, you're right. So what ended up happening is they had moved up there, her and her boyfriend, and he was kind of not digging it. He wasn't really so when they first moved in, just to set the stage here, they found some things. They bought I don't even want to say, it looks so dilapidated and gross. I mean, no offense. It was an ugly place. I saw it. It was more of a fixer upper than anything. And it wasn't, I even asked a question. I was like, don't you think that it would have been cheaper just to build it from scratch? But actually, no, because things were built better back then. So yeah, it looks that way, but the bones were solid. The foundation was solid. So they bought this place, and it was like a cabin, and there were like 3 layers of paint on it. And it had obviously previous owners, but the floor was rotting at this point. It was rotting big time. And it was like they had to go in and take all these boards out and stuff. And they moved in the summer when it was in the summer. It was always nice and cool. It gets a little bit hot, not much, but it's cold up there all the time. And I think that her being what she is, and her blood is just in her blood to be up there. And her boyfriend, he's from Wisconsin, but he's just like, you know what, to heck with it. I've lived in northern Wisconsin or whatever. So it gets cold, you know. But he was telling me, he was like, up there, it's cold. Like the cold in the wintertime goes through your bones. And then she's out there like, I love this. Why is everybody all dying? You know, it's like, because it's like 40 below, you know. So the winter is brutal up there, brutal. And so they end up living in this place. But when they went to pull the floorboards out, they found something in the floorboards. So they turned it over to the authorities. And she said, it's so desolate out there. It took them 2 days to show up. They were like, yeah, we got lost. We didn't know this was part of our jurisdiction, but Hey, don't you know it is? It's interesting. Hey, you got any cocoa, eh? Because I'm really cold, eh? No, that's not what happened. I'm just joking. I'm making fun of the Canadians. And they're like, you got any cocoa? Eh? Joking. Them's jokes. But so they show up. She says it took them 2 days to get out there. And they show up. And so they're like, well, it looks like animal bones. And they're like, no, there's a human skull there. Do you see it? There's also clothing. And they're like, huh. Well, so that is. Somebody put clothes on this cougar. That's not what they said. But they acted like that. The way that the impression that I got was that these people, and I'm not trying to be mean about the authorities. I don't know them. It was like Keystone cops up there. They were just like, we'll just go ahead and take these and we'll let you know what we find out. They didn't, right? And so what ended up happening, she's like, months go by and there's none. She's like, it's like November. And she's like, hey,
Yeah.
What were your findings on that? Because we've had some weird stuff happening here.
We lost them.
Yeah. And they said, well, we sent them off for testing. So they drove 112 miles down to this place where they were keeping them. And they talked to somebody, and that person's talked to somebody else, and blah, 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 blah. And so they eventually, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, And so they said, okay, well, we'll get back with you on our findings. So it turns out that these bones were really old. Two things. They had a woodshed there too. They had a woodshed. They went in, they ended up just knocking that down. And there below the woodshed, they found more bones. But these were definitely the bones of a deer. Or not a deer, I would say an elk. Elk bones, big old antlers. And for some reason, it had been buried. And the bones looked like they had been burned. And they were laid out in a particular way. The legs looked like they had been crossed. So they didn't touch it. They didn't mess with it. Lac L'Orange, yeah. But there's another lake that I think is north of that, like I think it's to the northeast, I think. And they lived kind of up in that area. Anyway, it's way up there, right? So they find these bones and they're crossways. And then she tells me, she's like, do you think that could have been a contributing factor? I said, well, the fact that you had some dead guy's helmet and I think his dagger too, that definitely didn't have anything to do with none of the haunting. Definitely not. I said, the fact that you found a man's bones in the floorboards and you just built over it and made the cabin look pretty, that definitely didn't have nothing to do with it. The fact that you found elk bones that had been burned, that for sure had nothing to do with it, especially when the bones were laid out in a particular fashion. And when you found trees that were lined up like goalposts, that had none of that had anything to do with that. Nope, it never did. Never.
It's all coincidence.
Bunch of coincidences.
I don't believe in all this poppycock.
So I said, everything you've told me was a bad dream. Good day. And I hung up. I never talked to him again. I don't talk to crazy people. That's all I know. I was like, oh.
I said good day to you, man.
Right? I said good day. I said good day. Good day. And you're just like, this conversation is over. I don't talk to crazy people. That's your problem right there. You could go do that. I'm not going to do that. No, I talked to her and I said, look, you have a lot of things happening here. She also had, just to add to the paranormal soup, not to take Jason Bland's name, word, whatever, but to add to the soup, she had like a breastplate type thing that she had gotten from a powwow that she had gone to with her stepdad, down in like South Dakota or something. And then she bought a tomahawk that looked, you heard it?
Yep. Starting up
There
again.
it goes. 3 knocks. Boom, boom, boom.
Only ever during the show. Never before or after.
Well,
it's
it was
always
before
during
9.
the show.
Huh. Weird. But anyway, she had this tomahawk and supposedly it belonged to a Lakota. And it was old. It looked really old. And she said there was some weird stuff that kind of happened, And then she had like these Samai people, artifacts and some old jewelry and stuff. And she said, yeah, there was a lot of things that were, she's like, and I think some of these objects had energy. I was like, you think? Mm-hmm. And so she had some stuff going on for sure. but nothing like what happened, because months went by after they found this man's bones. It turned out he was just some settler, I guess, frontiersman, and they dated it back to the turn of the century, not the 2000 century, but back from 1900 on. It was before 1900.
Mm-hmm.
So he had passed away at some point, and it looked like he had been murdered. Well, obviously, if he's stuffed underneath they don't know how or why or who was there. That thing had been there for over, well over 100 years by the time they got it. And this story here is interesting. It actually predates Ilea's story. And I guess, that's actually how you say her name is Ilea, not Aaliyah. I thought I was at least getting that right, but I don't think I was. So Ilea's story, Zaina told me, very interesting, that she had done some research, and so that particular way that elk was laid out and killed, they have found things like that up and down all over the place, out in those woods, like in different areas. That particular, and now this, you heard that?
Yeah. I'm gonna go check that out.
I heard. Oh, okay, hold on, folks. I'll be right back. That was weird. Okay, all right, and so nothing there. We didn't find anything. We heard a big loud bang, and I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Nothing out there.
Nothing out there. Pray for Jason Finch. He's got tornadoes headed his way. That's what I just was told. So if y'all could deliver up some prayers for him. So what happened with the story here? And it's weird. We were talking about it, and then we started hearing this weird noise. I don't know if y'all could hear it or not, but it was weird. Where was I at? So anyway, there are these burnt elk bones, and when that was something they found. She said about 2 weeks after they found the floorboard, they were working on one thing at a time. The shed, they decided to knock it down, and then there was like this kind of hole. They dug it out to see what it was. The shed had a sturdy floor, but why did they build it over the top of that? I don't know. They don't know either. And seems to be kind of a theme. It's like, well, we found something really weird. Let's build something on top of it and pretend like it never existed. That's going to solve the problem right up. And so, so what ended up happening, they find these bones, and when they unearth them, she's like, it wasn't like a slow, gradual building up of something. No, she goes, it was an intense and immediate reaction. She said the first thing that we saw was this weird, light reddish brown creature that was standing by the tree line. And she said the tree line was about 30 yards away from the back door. She had a pretty big backyard area. And she's like, I'm washing dishes, you know, and she's like, and I'm actually really enjoying, unlike my husband, I'm enjoying being out in this desolate area. She's like, it's just me and him. He has no escape. I can control him. He can't do nothing.
Yeah.
It's
like misery.
Yeah. I can break his legs and tell him, trust me, it's for the best.
Yeah.
And I was like, awesome. I was like, go ahead and tell me the story. Sorry he went through that. But anyway, so anyways, they see this creature, and she calls her husband. She said, hey, come here. Look at this. She's like, there's this thing, it's just standing there. It's not moving. It's not doing anything. And it almost looked like it was vibrating. She's like, have you ever stared at anything? She asked me this question, folks, and I'll ask you. She's like, have you ever stared at anything so long it starts to blur? And I was like, nope, never had that problem. What kind of weird hell crap is that? And she, I said, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, I've done it when I was a kid and I had time. I was like, obviously you have time. You live, you know, in the middle of nowhere off the grid. Of course you have time. But she was looking and she says, yeah, I see this thing. And it almost started to like vibrate. And I was like, are we seeing it? She goes, is it vibrating to you? And next thing you know, she says she sees this like kind of a blurry, like when something's like hot in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I can relate to this. She goes, because I went to Arizona and Southern California when I was younger, and I stayed out there for a little while. And and the heat like to kill me. She goes, I'm a cold weather person. I couldn't stand the heat. It was horrible. And she goes, but I remember that blurry look that I hadn't seen before until I was like, you know, my late teens, early 20s. And she said it was awful. But she said she remembers that, and it brought back this rush of memories, you know. And she said then it was just gone. And I was like it went behind a tree. She goes, no, like it was just gone. It was gone. And so she said that whenever she was staring at that in that area, she said immediately they grabbed their rifles. These are not scaredy cat people. They're not. Because I don't think I would have just grabbed a rifle and ran out there to go see, you know. Now, I'm pretty sure they didn't just go bumbling around. Hey, well, you know, she was like, hey, we were looking. We were kind of careful. We were looking behind the trees, and we came from another side. And there was nothing there. Mm-hmm. And I said, what did it look like? Was it flat faced? Did it have a snout? I asked all these questions, and she was like, I don't know. I don't know. And I said, you're living out there. You don't got no binoculars or a scope on your rifle? She goes, it happened like, you know, pretty quick. She's like, we weren't thinking about this, you know, like, hey.
Yeah.
And she's like, and I didn't want to take my eyes off of it. She goes, my husband went to go grab a camera. We do have a camera. And he went to go grab a Canon, you know, camera and take pictures. And it was gone, but it was so small, you know, when we were going to try and, you know, focus it, whatever. I said, go grab the camera. She goes, and then it was just gone. But she said that there was some other things that took place. That was immediate. That was like the night of when they first found those bones.
Uh-huh.
They hadn't even turned them over to anybody yet at that point. And it was some neighbors that lived like, you know, 30, 40 miles to the other way that told her, you know, about what those bones could have been. Those bones, those were put there by natives, according to them. And it was done probably in the early 1800s to late 1700s. And sure enough, they got the bones tested. It was correct. That's the time that they gave those bones. They were probably around the 1700s. From people that we know nothing about at this point. They're from a bygone era. They kept no real records. Mm-hmm. So people find these animal bones laid out a certain way. Now think about when my cousin Tim came on. You remember when he talked about what he saw in Mount Vernon when he found those cat bones underneath it? They think it was something that the natives had done. Mm-hmm. That's what this was, I think, my opinion. And that's what these people think too. And so they had this weird decision to make, you know, in the meantime, before somebody can come and get these bones. And look at them. And so they had to like keep them over the winter because unlike the human remains, the rural mounted Canadian police, the Mounties weren't going to come and go, let's go get those bones, eh? It's important. They're like, well, you found some elk bones. Well, good for you. Can you throw them in the dumpster or bury them? And they're like, no, we'd like to have these looked at and analyzed. They're like, well, we don't do that. Sorry. Well, see ya. And that was pretty much it. And then they found somebody that could do it. But remember from the beginning earlier when we talked about the German helmet or the Finnish helmet, whatever, it's going to come into play later. So what ends up happening? They have this visitor that shows up. Now, this is where the Wendigo part comes in, and we don't know if this is what this is. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. But the second day, and this was in daylight, this was not at night, and they were out, and they have traps out there, to catch animals and things like that. They're living like, way out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, Spooktator says Canada has more lakes than any nation. Coincidence? Exactly. It's not. So they have these traps, and she says that they hear this squealing noise. It sounded almost like a piglet or something. And they go out there. She goes, and we see this thing taking an animal that we still to this day cannot identify what it was. The animal.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I had no idea what a crawler, whatever this was, because she said she had done some research and looked into it. And she found that there was this, creature they called the rake. And she told me before I even asked, she'd already done her research. And she said, I think it's the rake. Now, when people tell me I had a this, and that encounter, and then later, sometimes I'll come into conflict with it because I'll tell them, I don't think that's what that was. I'm going to tell you what I think it was. And if you want to accept it, accept it. If you don't, you don't. So we didn't get into like this big argument about it. And I just said, look, this is this creature that shows up. It was big. It wasn't skinny. It was large, but it was white and pale. And this was pre-snow. There wasn't any snow. And the snowfall came later that year. She said it was a little bit late. And she said it was really cold. And then, by late November, it was dumping snow. But she said we'd had this weird little flurry toward the end of October, and then it was like dry for a while, and then boom. But she said there was no snow. This thing, you could tell it probably blended in with the snow most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And she said it had, get this, rabbit-like hair on it. You know how the fur on a rabbit looks?
Yeah.
She said it covered its
short
whole
hair.
Yeah, white.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this rabbit-like fur covering its whole body. She said it had no nose that she could see, and the eyes were big and not bulbous, but they were flat, but they were wide, very big.
Mm-hmm.
She said the head was huge, and it had this weird, like really large mouth that almost looked like, and then she said this might sound weird, but like, she's like, you ever seen the piranha plants from the Nintendo?
Yeah.
She said there was a game I had when I was a kid, and these piranha plants would come out, and the teeth looked like that, like it was in the mouth. But the lips, it had lips, but not big lips. The lips, they weren't real pronounced, but it was like that, the roundedness of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird. And then she said that this thing was unaliving this animal, and it by the time they got out there and saw it, she said that this thing had already devoured it. Like she said, it was that quick, and there was this blood and fur left in the trap. And I said, what do you think the animal was? She goes, I don't know. We couldn't even tell by what was left. And then it jumped and hopped and then got up on 2 legs, then back on 4 legs and was gone into the woods. And so I've heard of you get these reports of this pale crawler, and we've heard a million stories about it. But what is this fur on there? What is this white fur that permeated this whole being's? What she said was all over this thing, everywhere. And she said that it looked like a bunny rabbit. Get this. This is the best way she could describe it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a bunny rabbit with no ears and a mouthful of teeth.
Ugh.
Yeah. And she said that the next day, she's like, at this point, it was like, they were expecting a big snowfall, and it came a little bit late. And then all of a sudden, boom, it hit. She said the next day they hear a bang at the back door. And she said, at their front door, they hear a bang and so they go up to the window, they look out, and they see Nothing. And then they hear what sounds like a conversation happening. And what's weird about it is they heard what sounded like a man speaking in a language that she understood. And that language was Finnish. And like he was arguing with somebody. And she was like, and she's looking at her husband. He doesn't speak, and he's an American, you know. He's like, I grew up eating bratwurst, rooting for the Packers, both of which are very unhealthy for you. Don't do either one, folks. I recommend you stay the hell away from both for your own health, for your own good, especially the Packers. But anyway,
Okay,
she
but
said,
you're not keeping me from bratwurst.
but well, at least don't go, you know, the Packers. But she was like, yeah, my husband, he doesn't speak anything, and I understand it. I'm like, this is Finnish. And then he's like, a ghost, you know, maybe, whatever. And she's like, yeah. And then, but they were still shook up from what they had seen the day before with that creature. And they just kept talking about it and talking about it. And she called her stepdad, the only father she ever knew, and he was Chippewa. And he told her, he says, I don't know, man. He goes, that sounds like, you know, like this, you know, legend that people call the Wendigo. And it wasn't like a huge thing in their culture, but there, and I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not joking. Nearly every native culture has some sort of creature. It's just that we've taken to calling them Wendigo. We've taken to calling them skinwalkers. They're different things. And like in Alaska, the Kushtaka. Now the Kushtaka is not a Bigfoot. It is not a Bigfoot. It's not even a Bigfoot type creature. It is the otter man. Or otter people. Look it up. I interviewed David Weatherly years ago, and they just refer to that, you know, as this Kushtaka. It's this otter man type creature. I don't know how to describe it. And then they have these, what they call the tail men, which are these creatures that have these long tails, and they look kind of like a devil monkey, but they're big. And we have these reports of these devil monkey type creatures, but they're not giant, you know. Like think of the rebobs, you know, from California. So anyway, you have all these different stories and these different legends, and they're describing similar creatures, but they're not the same, because I think it's regional. I do. This story is going to get more and more interesting, folks. So really pay attention. Okay. I'm going to bring it home to you. One of the things that was going on there, and this seems to always happen with these demonic entities, these disembodied Nephilim, whatever you want to call them. They started having these dreams. She's like, I wake up and I'm over there and I'm standing over where these bones were. And there's this char that's there that's kind of into the ground. She's like, and it starts to liquefy and turns into a pool of black sludge. She's like, and then I fall into it, and I'm just like, I remember this goo just going all over my body, and I can't breathe. And then I wake up, and I'm like, can't breathe, I can't breathe. And she's like, and my husband's like, oh yeah, what's going on, you know? And then he pretends to care, and he goes back to sleep. You know how it is if you're a husband. Come on, man. You're like, okay, enough of this night terrors. You know, it gets old.
More of this female hysteria.
You're hysterical. That's a female thing. I suggest you go back to sleep. Now, if it happens to me, let's panic. That's all I'm saying. This is a 50-50 partnership. A deal's a deal. And help me carry these bricks. I'm going to build this house. And by carry these bricks, I mean you while I drink lemonade. No, so what ends up happening, right? So we end up with this nightmare. And I said, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to ask you a question. I was like, would you call this black sludge like black goo? Like it was a living thing? Was it like something, did you ingest it and whatever? She's like, it was a dream. I said, I don't think it was. And she's like, yeah, you know, she goes, I got to tell you though. She goes, yeah, maybe it wasn't a dream. She's like, when I went to the bathroom, I woke up really early that day and I decided to take a shower. She's like, and so I took a hot shower. And she goes, I'll be honest, out there in that cold, you don't take a shower every day. You try to stay warm. She's like, but I took a shower. She goes, and there was this black, what looked like, you know, mud or something that was coming off my feet. And I'm like, how in the hell did that get on my feet? So I told her, I said, see, You were probably outside. She's like, yeah, but I don't know how. And I wasn't covered in sludge. And I was like, yeah, because this is where it gets weird. That dreamlike state is a doorway, folks. It is an entryway. What happens, in my opinion, and this is my humble opinion, I think that you walk in between two worlds just like these creatures do. We're spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. And I'm not kidding. This is what's going on. And I don't care what anybody says. I'll argue with anybody. These are metaphysical beings. Why does all this stuff seem to happen? We had the other day when the guy was telling his story about the vampire, and his name was a Creed. I was going to say Reed. Reed's not Christ, Creed. And so Ken was talking, and he says, with these flying humanoids, there tends to be this weird. People have these dreams. They start to have these weird, like paranormal type things that go on around them. Sometimes it even becomes like poltergeist like activity. And this is the same case that happened with these people. It's the same thing that happened with them. They started to have weird stuff happen. She says, one of the most terrifying things that happened to me, she's like, and it was that the next night, she's like, and I'm already frazzled. I'm on edge. And I'm thinking, when is this creature going to come back? She's terrified. She's got rifles right there and handguns. She's ready to go if they need to. Now, I guess you're not technically supposed to have those things there in Canada, but these people live out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, come and take them.
Yeah.
They don't care. The Canadians are tough. They get this bad rep about being soft, but that's because the people that live in the cities and they don't know what bathroom to use. Now, these people that live out there, they know where to go to the bathroom. It's in the woods. And you know what to wipe your butt with? A rabbit. And you know what you're supposed to eat? Bear. Okay? It's what's for dinner. They're pretty tough people, I'm telling you. French Canadians, too, can be rowdy and tough. I used to hang out with one. He was pretty nuts. Could take a punch. He was a brawler. I tried to show him how to box, and he was just interested in doing overhand rights as hard as he could until whoever it was fell dead. Anyway. So here's the thing. Although I will say this, the overhand right is the best punch to knock a guy out. If you don't want to knock a guy out, that overhand right I have a really hard overhand right. My brother's got a powerful overhand right. It's at one time it's probably as powerful as mine. But I wasn't a one punch, one and done kind of guy. And I was more of a machine gun puncher. But these people, I'm telling you, man, they are tough people. They're not frail, whatever, wishy-washy, So she said, she goes, I wouldn't do anything without my guns right there. She's like, and I was like, I had a meat cleaver with me. I was ready to go, whatever. If this thing comes back, she says, and I hear 3 right there at the back door that was facing the woods where she was, so she's like, kind of dries her hands, and she's cleaning up, and husband is in the back chopping firewood, and she walks out and she looks and she doesn't see anything. And then she turns, and when she's walking by the window, she looks again and she sees this big elk standing there. It looked like it was a big, massive creature, and it was right there. And she's like, oh man, that's dinner. It's just, there was one problem. She said when the thing turned, there was only half of an elk there. And there's bear, right? There's bear. They hadn't seen one yet at this point. She's like, and it was odd. She said that in that area, there really weren't any predators around. In fact, there weren't a lot. They had to go pretty far afield to find a large, animal. And when this thing turned to the side, she said this thing had been obliterated. It wasn't like cut in half, like some sort of supernatural thing. No, this thing turned. Part of its face was gone, and it had been mauled, and it was missing its back right leg. It was just torn. It had been torn off. It was, and she's like, and I look, and it was just dripping everywhere, and something had mauled this thing. So she walked out onto the porch. She said, and it was really cold, and she's like, so she walks towards it, and this thing started to walk towards her like it's trying. This is really intense right here, folks. So get ready. She said, but this thing, it was walking toward her like, help me, help me. She's like, it's obviously nothing I can do. She's like, I had a really large caliber handgun and I was going to just put it out of its misery. She's like, I just walked out. I had it in my jacket. And then I turned and I thought, maybe I should get the rifle so I don't got to get too close. And before she knew it, she heard what sounded like this explosion. And she's like, and I was so flustered at that point. She goes, I turned around. She's like, I had the handgun and I just fired 2 or 3 times, just instinctively. She goes, and I see this creature. Now, I didn't see it explode, come up out of the whatever, but she now believes that this thing was crawling under the snow. And it was this white crawler thing. And it had latched on underneath this elk and just pulled it down and just was taking huge chunks. It unalived it real quick. And she screamed for her husband. He's now living, and he doesn't live out there. They don't live there anymore. Let's put it that way. And they're in Milwaukee, but he's working at a job. So I'm going to call him Mark. Okay. So she turns around and screams, and she's like, Mark. That's his name, actually. I'm making a big deal out of it. But anyway, he comes running and he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh my God. He's like, oh my God. You see this creature had gone back down under the ground and had pulled this elk, and then it popped back up. And she says, I'm not even going to lie to you. She's like, it looked like she's like, you ever watched a Bugs Bunny cartoon? I used to love Bugs Bunny. He's one of my heroes. And she said, yeah. And she goes, you know how he would tunnel and then pop up? Yeah. She's like, this is what it did. Like a freaking cartoon. Except this was no cartoon. This was no joke. She goes, and I was watching this and I'm going like, what in the hell did I just witness? And she's like, Mark, I can't handle, I got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. And he's like, we're stuck. Yeah. He's like, we're going to be out here until who knows when. He's like, the snow is so thick. He's like, we're at this point, we're like using snowshoes, you can't, he's like, we ain't going nowhere. And she's like, I don't know what to do. She called her, the phone lines were still working, whatever, it was December at this point. And she called her dad and her mom. And she's like, I'm crying. And she's like, and they're like, well, we can't get to you. Those people have to hunker down for the winter. You don't understand. You're done. And you walk out to the lake and you ice fish. This is, the reality that they live in. And she's like, there's nothing we can do. She's like, and this creature, she's like, if I had to bet money on it at that point, she goes, I think it was getting bigger. It gets worse, folks. She said they were out about a half mile out tracking what they thought was going to be dinner. And there, up in a tree, they look up. And she's like, and there again, there was this animal carcass with a hoof. They didn't know what kind it was or what it was. And it just looked like it was just destroyed. And you could see the blood had pooled down at the base of the tree. And they were like, we better get out of here. This went on and on and on. I mean, it got really bad. I mean, it was like one of the things that the nightmares ramped up. And she was starting to wander further and further out into the woods with these nightmares. And one of them, I'm going to tell you. Hold on one second. All right. So anyway, sorry about that, folks. I have a message, work stuff. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm trying to deal with things. So she said, she goes, look, she goes, I started having these nightmares. She goes, and one of them, it got really weird. I said, weird, like it wasn't already weird. Like you've been telling me some weird stuff already for the last hour. And she's like, no, this was weird. Like she goes, I go out to the woods and she's like, and there's like this bouncing orangey looking ball just kind of bouncing. I follow it. She goes, and then she's like, it just kind of like straightens out and it turns, and there's this bear wolf like creature. It doesn't have any legs. It's just kind of, it fades down to the bottom like it's wispy. She's like, and it looks at me. She goes, and then it just starts running at me. So I take off running. She's like, and I get up to the door of the cabin, you know, and I close the door behind me, and I hear this boom, boom, like it's trying to get in. She's like, and then I'm shaken awake by Mark and my husband. And she's like, I wake up. And I was like, you know, throwing the covers everywhere and freaking out. And he's like, what is that noise? And she's like, what noise? She thought she was waking up from a dream.
Yeah.
He heard the banging. And there again, they hear this loud arguing going on. And it sounds like a man. It looked like a man. Like some people's girlfriends, it looked like a man, you know? If you're in PRT News, you know what I'm talking about. But it looked like a man. So what ended up happening, they hear it, it sounds like a man. And there again, it was just Finnish language. It was bizarre. It was weird. And then there was this other language that sometimes they would hear toward the back of the front of the cabin. And get this, it sounded like some kind of garbled, you know, what, like a native language. She said, I've heard, you know, my adopted father's people speak, and it sounded kind of like that, but not really. And she just said it just sounded weird. It sounded like some talking or something, you know. And she said, I asked her, I said, are you a Christian? Do you believe in Christ? And she says, absolutely. She goes, and believe me, she goes, I had the crosses over the door. You know, I used the oil. She goes, I was praying. I was doing everything. And they began to run out of food because they had to go further and further out into the woods. And then they find this moose that was, part of it was over here and the other part was gone. Just like a little bit of a leg. Jeez. And she said it looked like a huge bite. She's like, and then we went back home because there again, there was something out there. And we were thinking, is this a bear? Her husband, right? And she's like, Mark, you saw what I saw. You saw the elk being decimated. And then he tells her, they start to argue, and he goes, I don't know what I saw. She goes, well, you saw that weird white furried crawler thing, whatever it was. They started calling it the thing because they didn't know what it was. And he goes, I don't know what I saw. Now he's like in denial, and he's saying basically like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what I saw. She's like, well, what about all this banging and these weird people speaking in these weird languages? He's like, I don't know. It's cabin fever. He starts like, yeah. And by his own admission, he said, my city, Wisconsin mind started saying, look, this is just too much, right? This isn't real. He's like, I grew up going to Brewers games and, you know, because I didn't sign up for this. He's like, I stayed out of the cold. I went inside when it was cold. He goes, I went out to Lambeau Field, you know, and it was cold, you know, because he's got that sickness called being a Packer fan. Ken Gerhardt has that too, folks. You can
That's
only
the scariest part.
You really have to get these people into therapy, pray that they can change from their wayward ways.
And the nefarious part about it is that they look like normal people.
They do.
I mean, you can never tell by just looking at them. They look like you and me, just like normal, everyday, regular people. And you have no idea that they're Packers fans.
Yeah. And then you find out and you're like, oh.
I mean, it could be anyone.
Anyone. Mm-hmm.
We could have thousands of Packers fans walking among us right now.
We have one that works for us.
And we would never know.
She appears normal until you let her talk about
that. They look like it's crazy. I mean, monsters can take any form.
It's true. Yeah, and then they have that temple that they go to called
Yeah.
Lambeau Field, and they worship there.
The daywalkers.
Yeesh. Would hate to be them. I know, that's all I know.
They're cryptid unto themselves.
Look at this right here. Liberty is part of that cult.
See what I mean?
That's it.
It could be anyone.
Could be anyone.
It could be it could be your closest loved ones. They could turn out to be Packers fans.
You go look, and if you see green and yellow in their closet,
You think you know people.
call the authorities and let them know you have a psychopath.
Your
living with
your
you.
best friend could be a Packer fan right now.
My friend Reinhardt, he's struggling with Packerism. I mean, it's a terrible thing, you know. So Liberty says I was born in Green Bay. Oh my gosh, dude! So this guy, he's like, you know, I grew up going to these, you know, with my dad, you know, and you know, go Packers, you know. And I wasn't, you know, he was into all that cultist stuff, you know. And so he says, dude, he's like, I'm up there and I'm going like, I didn't sign up for this, and she's like, I didn't either. We got to get out of here. And at this point though, he did tell me. I talked to him, and he said, look, I was starting to think that maybe she was the cause of it. Maybe she had a psychosis and I was just feeding into it by believing in it. And maybe I was hallucinating. He goes, I don't know. And then he started thinking maybe she was schizophrenic. And so he talked to her mother and was like, did she have a history? Did her dad have? She's like, no. There was the Mountain of Death where people saw weird creatures devour people, you know, and skin them alive. But other than that, it was no weirdness. I mean, no, not really.
It's not related.
Nothing related. But he talked to her mother, and her mother was like, I don't know. I don't think that there's any, not that I know of. I mean, there's not, you know. And so he began to like, you know, he goes, dude, I start going down this rabbit hole. You know, he goes, this is after they got out of there. He went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what the hell had happened to them. Obviously, they survived this ordeal. But he said that the most shocking thing that happened, he said he went out, his wife was starting to sleep later and later and get up earlier and earlier to the point where she was getting up at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night.
Jeez.
Going to bed at like 3 in the afternoon. It was crazy. So she was asleep, and he goes, I'm going to go out and look for dinner. And she's like, okay, you know. And he goes, I go out there, he goes, and I find the remains of a bear. And he's like, it wasn't a huge brown bear, but it was a bear nonetheless. And it looked like it had been pulled. I found the den. It had been pulled out of its den, and all the back part of it, the meat and everything, was stripped off of it. And he said at this point he had taken to bringing a camera with him. He's like, but it was damn near 20 below. He goes, and trying to use it, it was almost impossible. The pictures didn't work. They didn't come out. The film didn't survive. And he's like, we had nothing. You know, eventually the cell phones were completely useless. You couldn't use them. He's like, and the temperature dropped even more and more. He's like, you know, it's like being an Eskimo. He's like, and now we're starting to go hungry. We got no food. And we can't eat these things that have been chewed on by whatever the hell this thing is. I don't even know what the hell this thing is.
Yeah.
And then he says there was this one night, he was coming back and it was getting dark. Thank you for that donation. Let's notice that. What's wrong with you people? You're not donating. How are we supposed to get cameras to go take pictures of these beings if you're not going to donate? You pieces of crap. Come on. You're all little pieces of crap. You're selling rubber duckies to you for you pay for them. It's $50. Piece of crap. So he says, the most terrifying thing that happened to me, and it brought all of this back. And he goes, and I wasn't Christian. I kept like refusing to pray and all this. He said, and I started praying. I was praying like crazy after this. I said, well, what was it? He said, I hear this kind of clicking noise, and I've heard this people talk about this before. And he said there was this like kind of a click, 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 and he's walking, and he looks up, and he goes, and on this tree, now we've heard this before here at PRT, there was this thing. You could see the hand on the side of the tree. And he said, I remember my grandmother being a little bit superstitious. And she was a Scandinavian, and she always said, if you see something in the woods, and her his grandmother now, she was, her mother was from Norway. His great grandparents were Norwegian.
Mm-hmm.
He said she was like taught by them, his grandmother was, to ignore it. She goes, if you see a child of Loki in the woods, this is what he was taught. Marlo, thank you for that donation. Not for cameras. Good. That's cool. But they said, if you see a child of Loki, ignore it. Don't look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Just pretend and do not look in its eyes. Thank you for that donation, Sugar Budget. We appreciate it. But so she said, whenever this thing turned, he's like, it started to crawl around the other side of the tree, and he hears a rat. Now, I tried to reproduce the way that he said it sounded. And there was a little clip that I found of someone who had recorded one of these. And I don't know if it's real or fake. The comment section, it's fake. Everybody's going to say, because you don't know.
Yeah.
But it had this sort of like, I can't do it. I've tried. But it's like and I don't want to play it on here because everybody's going to say he was playing fake noises of whatever. That's a raccoon mating, whatever. And then it made this sort of like click, 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 but it was loud, almost like a chomping, but it was making a clicking sound. And then he sees the head look around at him. He says, and I'm looking at this thing. The eyes had they were black, kind of slanted. The head was shaped like a pea. And it had this weird mouth with these jaggedy teeth, but they were big. But the mouth was huge. It was like the mouth was big and the teeth, he's like, you've seen Venom. And I said, yeah, kind of like that. But I didn't see a tongue. He's like, but I'm sure it was there. But he goes, and there was no nose, and it was just looking at me. He goes, and then it made like a hissing noise, like a snake.
Yeah.
He said, and then he's like, it started to crawl down the tree very quickly. He turned, and he goes, I just started to run. He goes, and I'm running. And I look back, I don't see this thing. But here is something that happened to him too. Here's another thing. This happened to him. He's like, we had rebuilt a shed where we were planning on keeping meat and stuff out there during the winter, which didn't work out because this thing was out there. He goes, and I'm going around the side of the house. He goes, and it's, I'm out in the middle of nowhere and it's 30 below zero. Who cares? He goes, and I got to take a leak. I don't care. So he goes to take a leak. And he said that he hears, and he hears in the snow, and he turns around and he sees what could only be the bear that he had seen that was unalived. He's like, and it's toward the edge of the property. It's walking around. He's like, and I could see it. And I was actually going to talk about this part of the encounter on TikTok, because it's like zombies, right? He said this thing had no eye. The head was all stripped of any kind of flesh, and there was just sort of the right side had been taken more than the left. And he goes, and there you could see the ribs, the spine. This thing was walking around, and it was like a zombie. And he's like, he goes, I run inside, and I'm like, Zaina, you gotta see this. She's like, she's half asleep. She gets up out of the chair. She goes out there, and she's just like, oh my gosh. He turns and he looks, and he doesn't see the zombie bear thing anymore. He just sees a bear, a real bear, a regular bear. And it just kind of like walks and it looks, sniffs the air, and then runs off into the woods. And he's like, that is not what I saw. He's like, and she's like, well, that's crazy. This bear is out, and it's wintertime. She goes, we just saw a bear. It's in the middle of winter. This is not correct. They're supposed to be hibernating.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, yeah, but okay. And he's like, I'm trying to adjust to the crazy weirdness that just happened. He's like, yeah, but this is not what I just saw. I just saw the bear that we saw last week that didn't have any flesh on its back, that looked like it had been ripped open. She's like, he goes, I saw that bear walking around. And she was like, well, clearly you didn't, because that was a grizzly bear that was just walking around right there. Bigger than the one we saw. And she's like, at this point, she goes, I don't even give a crap. Well, she didn't say those polite words. She said, I don't give a F anymore. She's like, I don't care. She's like, I go back inside and go to sleep. I don't give a shit.
Wants to sleep through it.
Yeah, that's what she was trying to do. She's
Yeah.
like, my stomach was hurting. We had eaten our last can of beans. She goes, we're dying. She's like, and then the snow just kept coming, and it was like, and ice, and if you're a Texan, you're just like a lot of white stuff just kept coming down. Now in Texas, it could be two things. It's either a bunch of icy shit or it's cocaine. Either one. I read books upside down. And me and my friends, the Clintons, we've been bringing that stuff in for a long time. Peruvian flake, Colombian gold. I'm joking. I'm kidding. My buddy Juan Valdez, he brings it in on his birthday. I'm joking. Anyways, there was some weird stuff going on here, and they're trying to make heads or tails of this. So they sit there one night and they hear the banging again. And at this point, they look out and they see this white creature again. And then it runs around the porch and goes to the other side. And then they hear a banging on the other side of the wall. And they hear these loud arguing voices. At the front, they hear this weird, what sounds like a Finnish man arguing, yelling or something. And in the back, they came to the conclusion that it sounded like a native or somebody arguing, yelling. It was like these people were arguing and talking and yelling, and they would wake up all hours of the night and they would hear all of this crap. And eventually they got down on their knees and they prayed and they prayed and they prayed. And they said by March, this thing had aggravated them so bad, it was driving them nuts. And finally the ice, everything started to thaw. They grabbed their crap and they drove to the nearest town that had a motel, and they stayed there for like 2 weeks. And then they drove themselves back across, and they went home to her parents, and his parents. Well, his parents was northern where he was from. She said, we just drove night and day, went back. We left all of our stuff there. She said, and we had bought that place, and she said we put it up for sale. And she said that we didn't get any hits for a while. There was nobody, they would go to look at it and the place was a mess. She's like, we had lost about 40, 50 pounds.
Oh.
She's like, my husband, because he was fat. She's like, me. She's like, me. She's like, I was down, like 30, 40 pounds. She's like, I look like a skeleton at this point. There was no food. And this thing was terrorizing us. She's like, and when I tried to talk to my stepdad about it, I told him, she said, my mother kept telling me, oh, you were having some sort of psychosis, maybe, whatever. And her stepdad was like, no. His theory was this, and this could be a plausible theory, that burnt offering, that elk was laid there. It was made as a sacrifice, right? To keep out whatever was there, to imprison it or entomb that evil that was there, and to keep it, that the woods were cleared the way they were cleared in a horseshoe, and to keep whatever was out there from coming in to your personal space. Now, a year or two later, she has a friend that's a psychic, and told her, she said, this woman who's a psychic, now she's a Christian, but she was born with an ability to and this is her theory and her words, where she says, look, she said that thing was like an elemental type spirit, and it lives within the earth. And it was given its walking papers by whoever did that with the elk, but it doesn't stop it. It didn't tie, bind, and rebuke it. It only gave it a pause, and it came back out once that was moved. And at that point, it just ate and ate and ate, so it could stay in the physical world. And that's why you were seeing it and finding all these dead animals. It was killing everything around it. Now, she also explained what the bear wolf-like thing was that came up out of the orb. She said when this portals are opened, sometimes other things come through. And she didn't think that had anything to do with that creature. It was just a coincidence. And she was out of her body wandering around in the woods. And that thing saw her and turned and wanted some energy and was going to get her. And that was the end of that. There wasn't really much to that. It wasn't really related. It was because of the nature of the situation, but that thing was not not really associated with that other creature.
Mm-hmm.
It just happened. It was opportunistic, and it happened to be there, and it chased her. That's her take on it. And I'll give you mine in a minute. The other thing that she was told by a remote viewer friend, and I actually know this guy, he's actually pretty good. And he doesn't like to be in the limelight too much, and I'll tell you why. And I know him because he did some work back in the day for some shadow type thing. I don't want to get too deep into that until he's ready to talk about it himself. And he did a thing for me. He remote viewed from me. So I know the guy, and he's real. He's not one of these BS artists that just remote views fake stories and goes, "Oh, this is what that is." No. But what he said when he remote viewed it was that this creature had been terrorizing these people, and it was literally like what this guy's grandmother had said, like a child of Loki. It was one of these evil entities, and it was summoned by one tribe, probably warring with another.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees them doing this like ceremony. But get this, these were white people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a long time ago. And he said that this creature was summoned, and then that these natives summoned another creature that looked like that creature, but was different. And they made war with one another. They were using, like magic on one another.
Yeah.
And these white people were large, not like overly large giants, but they were huge people compared to these natives. And these natives summoned this creature. And so the natives summoned this white Wendigo-like creature to fight this other creature that these other white people had summoned.
Yeah.
And that creature was that bear man looking thing. Right down to this thing having been a human at one time, and it was brought over, and they sacrificed a human. Because when this human come up out of this, burial or whatever, he saw this thing turning into like a bear, and it had these rune tattoos on his arms, and he said it was Viking. And this is what the remote viewer said. And I haven't talked to him, I know this guy. But yeah, and so it was interesting. We had that friend in common, but I haven't asked him, me personally, I haven't got a hold of him. I haven't tried. I haven't had a chance to, but I will, and I'll try to give you an update on this, especially with the Patreon and stuff like that. If you're there, I'll give you updates and things. So join the Patreon. It's a good thing, good way to help us and helps you. So when this thing was summoned, that is what the bear thing was. Now the psychic lady said that had nothing to do with this other thing. Mm-hmm. And then they asked, now if we break it down, and this is what she said. She said, when we went back up there, this kind of gives me the chills, even though it's really not terrifying. It's still kind of spooky. She goes, I had lost my tomahawk that I had bought when I was down at the powwow. And she said, I go to the back steps, and she goes, and as I'm walking out, I had this feeling I needed to look. I just turned around and I looked underneath the deck. And she's like, there was the tomahawk. It was right underneath the steps. She's like, I don't know why I thought to look there. And while all this stuff was going on, and I skipped some stuff there because there's so much to take in. They had 2 dogs, and they were unalive pretty quick toward the beginning of this. So it was very, and they didn't find them. They assumed that that's what happened, but they went out into the woods and they didn't come back. So this thing must have probably taken them. The front of the porch, they had this bench, and there was a thick blanket that hung over the bench. This is really interesting. This is neat right here. She said that I found the jacket and the helmet of this Finnish soldier, which she had found out belonged to another man, not her grandfather. And it was underneath the bench because it had animal fur skins on it, draped over it. So he didn't see it when they went back to go get everything. And she's like, and there was a spider in it. But she said that she goes, I go back to get it. And it's on the front porch. So that was interesting. So when we were talking, we were wrapping all this up, and I'm listening. And at that point, she asked me, now, if this would have been a few years ago, I probably wouldn't even have been able to tell them what in the hell, what I think. I would have been like, I don't know. I'm going to retell the story. It sounds great. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you this now, what I think. My opinion on this situation is that when they found the bones of that man, which who knows how that was related to any of this, that was some of the unrest and unsettling that they were hearing in the house. They were hearing like banging, knocking, whatever. Sometimes they would hear what sounded like communication between different people. Sometimes it was English. Sometimes it sounded Finnish. They didn't know what it was. It was these different languages. I think that guy was a restless spirit. I think he was murdered. I think that happened much later. Of course it did. I mean, then the bones that were buried there, those bones had been buried there years before. According to the remote viewer and the psychic, the bones were from way before the 1700s. This was like, they were talking 1500s. They believe that because of what they saw. I believe this. I believe that this pale crawler was a Wendigo type creature, and I do believe that it was summoned by someone. I don't know who. The native theory is just as good a theory as any, and then somebody put the black burnt elk there to stop whatever this was. I do believe that the theory on this bear wolf-like creature, this thing, may be correct. It may not be, that they summoned something to combat that thing. The bear being drug out of its den while it was hibernating could have been a food source, or it could have been like it was attacking the bear because that was its enemy. Mm-hmm. I believe these spirits were there, and I'm going to tell you this. I really think this. You notice how whenever the knocking would happen at the front door, they would hear what sounded like somebody yelling in Finnish.
Yeah.
The banging at the back door, they heard what they thought was a native or something. And then I forgot to tell you this part. There were multiple sightings of what looked like an old like frontiersman that was seen in around the cabin, just kind of there. And at one point, when she was looking out the window and she thought she saw this white creature run by what used to be the shed, she turned around, and this guy that she thinks was the spirit of the man who was deceased from the floorboards, he was just standing there, just looking at her with his mouth open, and like then he just turned and walked into the other room, and she felt compelled to follow him. And then she heard that bang up against the wall. And now she did. She said this. She said that the man disappeared, like he would be seen and disappear. And when she went to follow the man at this point, she said that this thing hit the wall. This is what she thinks. She don't know for sure, but this creature that was banging on the wall, and she thinks that the man maybe led her out of that room so that this thing wouldn't see her in the window and try to bust through the window, because she was surprised that it didn't try. And I told her this, and I'll tell the audience this. What do you think was happening at the front door when they would hear these bangings on the door, when they heard these bangings on the wall? Now, we were talking about this the other night, and somebody was saying that they heard banging on the wall. We had a guest on, and they were talking about, I forgot the guy's name, but he was talking about Bigfoot. You remember that on Monday? The guy was talking about like a Bigfoot type creature banging on the walls.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if he's in chat or what.
I forgot who that was.
Yeah, John Maddox says something interesting right here. He says, what if the human spirits were just offending? Yes, John, that's what I think. And I said, what if that tomahawk was a native spirit doing his part? And what if that helmet being at the front, it was not a coincidence? They don't know how the tomahawk got underneath the steps, but they do know that the helmet was left out. They just stuck it there when they had first moved. Then the blankets were thrown over there, And they just gradually forgot about it. And it was, when it turned winter, and then they didn't even go and sit out there anymore because it was too damn cold. And the Finnish soldier, who was her grandfather's best friend, I don't know. Now, if you stop and you look at all of this guy could have been, but he could have been yelling at these things when it would come to the door, to the house, to the wall. He may have been there like a sentinel. I told her this. This is what I thought maybe could be going on, and that he was screaming at these things and rebuking them. Because she did say that at times she thought she heard somebody praying.
Yeah.
So I told her that. I said, what if these beings were protecting you? They're obviously in some sort of purgatorial state, or so. I don't know.
Maybe they want to get out of the place they're in, and that's how.
Yeah. And it's a commonly held belief that soldiers, particularly when they die suddenly and abruptly, and then they find themselves on the other side, they're like, whoa. It's pretty traumatic to nearly die. Imagine dying. And so you're attached to something, some sort of artifact or something. And that could be it. So she took this back to her dad. I'm going to say her dad, because he really did raise her from when she was 2 years old, or 3 years old, whatever. And it was the only dad she ever knew. And she said that he thought that could be the case, because he said that there was a weird energy around that hatchet, and that's why he didn't want it.
Yeah.
And he had told her, he's like, you can put it in your house, but I'm not going to put it in my house. And he said that it was a ceremonial thing too, that should have been buried with the warrior that it belonged to.
Yeah.
And he said more than likely somebody dug it up and said, I'm going to sell this thing, That's what he believed. I don't know 100% what I believe about this. I don't know. But you can tell me in the comments what you believe and what you think. And that's the story of Zaina and Mark. I don't know. Abracadabra says, death and sacrifice open portals and can mess up the whole area with the energy. Yes, and the energies are just completely skewed, screwed, tattooed. You tell me. I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't know. So apparently, though, they've sold that property, and the people that live there now have had reported not really much going on. They are Christian too, as far as I know, and they've had it blessed. And they went through and they did all kinds of stuff and to have it cleansed, and they think that it worked. But then again, they have had minimal contact with those people, and they haven't been back up there since,
Yeah.
They just talked to him one day on the phone with an update and how's it going, and because they had asked him about something about the well.
Oh yeah, dead and hauntings have a way of getting quiet for a long time before they start up again. You never know. It just kind of seems like it like the incidents come in waves.
Yeah. Andrew Brown doesn't have much. He said it's just further out in the woods. Let's hope not, Andrew, because if so, it's and John says dormant. And Shade says this story is too crazy to be fake. Yeah, I hope it's not. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't think that they pulled one over on me. I don't believe that. But I do think this. And this is one thing I do. And it is kind of hard to follow sometimes. We were talking about this last night, about how when people give me a story, they give me an encounter, it's not a story. When they give us these encounters, and we've all fielded them, everybody in this group has, it's hard to follow. This one was hard to follow because when they were both telling me, I interviewed them both, and they were like they were over here, then they were over here, then they were over here, and they were over here. It was very hard, and I'm not. Please don't think I'm disparaging you if you're listening. No, that's not the case. And anybody who's given me one, don't think I'm talking bad or disparaging you. Just tell it how you can, and don't worry about. I'll deal with it. But this one was, there was so much that to take in that it was hard to keep up and try to make it into a cohesive story was quite the undertaking, even for me, because there was so much, and there were things that I had to omit and leave out. I just said, look, I have to leave that out. Not going to get into why. I just had to, and it didn't take out the integrity of the story. It was just very personal things, that were happening. That I thought probably I just need to leave. And then there was some other stuff that I just couldn't get to. It was just too much. There was so much activity that was happening to them on a daily basis. So what I suggested to her, and not to him, but to her, because she kept a journal of a lot of it up to a certain point. I said, if you feel comfortable, send me copies or email it. I've had people do that before, and I can go over it and I can break it down and I'll just, there's a few other people who've given me stories too that still have a lot of stuff, that they could talk about, because the haunting is very involved. Like my brother, he's helping me work on the book, and we're going over the book about the haunting, and there's so much of it, and he has to interview people, and he has to go back over people's, and it's tedious because there was so much that happened over years. Mm-hmm. This right here happened to them over the course of like 8 months. Imagine if they would have stayed with that situation as bad as it wasn't going to get any better. And I told her, I said, do you feel in your heart that if you would not have unearthed those bones, that everything would have been hunky-dory? She's like, I think we still would have had a haunting, but not the creature, and not to the level that what ended up happening. She said that there was it would have been different. So anybody got any questions? Feel free to ask. I can't drink out of this little bitty. No, this thing's cold. Huh. This was a hard one. I told Anthony and Dee both. I said, man, this is, and Zaina, no offense, please don't take it that way, but y'all, they jumped all over the place with this one.
Yeah.
And it would be like, oh yeah, and then it was 3 days back and forth of, oh yeah, and then there was this too. And let me tell you about this. We have to do an, we have no choice. We have to do an update and talk about a bunch of the stuff that went on, because there was other stuff we didn't even get to. And I can't do it all tonight. If I started talking about it, it would lead into another hour, and I can't do that. There was some weird stuff. There is one thing I could tell. I'm going to tell this. There's a story that pertains to this about that native spirit attached to that tomahawk, and I'm going to tell that one on the TikTok. I made up my mind about that. But that one was, I mean, if I just saw that, it would scare the crap out of me. I'd be like, whoa, what the freaking,
Yeah.
Just that would have been enough. Or you turn around and you see the guy, and I didn't describe it, the Pioneer Frontiers guy that was murdered there. Yeah, you could see like a slash on his neck, and his eyes looked like they were sunken in. So he was not a good looking sight. So you turn around and you see this, what phantom, whatever, and then it wanders into the next room, and you're more scared of whatever that demon is. So you're going to go follow it. And she said, dude, at that point, nothing made sense. It didn't matter. She's like, anything and everything was on and off the table. It didn't matter. It's like, at that point, what does it matter? I get it. we were kind of at that point living in that house we were in. You know, you were like, you know, I'll take a good spirit. I'll take a dancing happy ghost,
Yeah.
jumping jacks at this point, you know, compared to what we were dealing with. I've been there. I mean, I know. Chris Powell says, aren't Wendigos. That's it. Is that your final answer? And this is what you believe? That's it?
Just
Aren't Wendigos?
he says Wendigos, Canadian mythological creatures.
Wendigos, Canadian
I
mythological
still don't know what
creatures.
that means.
Still not, you know, like I said, I don't know if it was a Wendigo or not. Bless you.
Thank you.
What is a Wendigo? Has anybody ever scientifically proven what the hell it is? I mean, we don't know what it is. That's like people that are nitpicking about the skinwalker. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing because I don't know from what you're telling me. I don't know. But I never said this was a Canadian mythological creature. I'm just trying to figure out what the hell it is. And all I have to go by is to compare it to whatever we've been told before or what I've studied. Now, this
something
is
between a pale crawler and a Wendigo, but
it had like
is there
rabbit
really
fur on it, though.
But is there really that much of a line between whatever is a Wendigo and whatever is a pale crawler? I mean, who really knows?
You know, and it's like potato, but like people that talk about these the skinwalker, they're like, you know, they get real snarky. Well, the skinwalker is basically just from the Navajo. It's not from any other tribe or whatever.
People just say that because they think it makes them sound smart. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I know this one piece of information that
And
I'm
there was
going to repeat over and over to sound smart.
There was a podcaster that attacked another friend of ours with that whole thing. And I don't have any ill will toward the podcaster that did it. It was between them, but I just said, look, I use that term too. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just know what the hell to call it. I mean, what does it matter what the hell they're called? It's just, they are what they are. They exist. Everybody's always keying in on that. The rake is creepy pasta. The rake is creepy rice. The rake is something bad. The rake is not nice. No shit. We know this. We get it. All right. You don't have to freaking keep beating the drums about it. We don't know what it is. I don't know what to call it. And I'm not going to sit up here just to please people and make up, well, let's not call it that because we don't know. Do we know any of this? I mean, do we really know? We don't. Cielo Azul says, Hinsdale House, best paranormal place in America. They have portals, aliens, natives singing in the woods, everything. Okay. Doge Van Zant says, I am very concerned about the crawler. Why is that, Doge? Why are you crawlers? Why are you concerned about them?
You're concerned about its constitutional rights not being respected.
You're in the McDonald's drive-thru. Why, that's probably more scary than the pale crawler. But you're like, I want a crawler burger.
You're probably
freshly cooked.
You're probably eating a pale crawler.
That's what the fish is.
Yeah.
It's crawler meat. And I want it freshly cooked, made to order, McDonald's, right now. And them fries better not be cold. I don't think that they really try at any of those places. The food there is bad enough, but have you seen the people? They just, their souls sucked out of them. They're just like, McDonald's.
They look like they spent their whole life eating the food.
It's like, did I just walk into McDonald's, or is this the set of Nosferatu? And they are literally, it's like the guy comes up with the salad fingers. Like, may I take your order? You're just like, ugh, I'd like you not to, but take a human flesh thing, the rib meat that comes once a year during that time of year when they do that stuff. Yes, a good choice. Oh yes, McNuggets. No, Nos, no, I don't want the pink slime. I want the McHuman. Can I get that, please? Here at McHumans, we have a lot of different type of food that's made from human. You'll need to be more specific. Very dramatic. Okay, well, the rib meat thing that only happens during certain times a year, can I have that? The one that's specifically made of latex and human flesh.
Jake says the McLong pig.
The mix. He's like, excellent choice. One of my personal favorites. Would you like the secret barbecue sauce? Okay. And one McLong pig coming up with these long fingers, you know. Then he like, you look and he's like, there's a shadow moving by itself, and then he moves like, whoa, what in the hell? Then you see them open the freezer, and some guy comes out looking like Mr. Freeze, and he's like, here are your fries. And you're like, there's frost on these. You're welcome. And he just like floats back into the cooler, and you're like, what in the hell? And you look over, and there's some kid, he's got pimples and boogers and everything, and he's putting ice all the way to the top of your drink. And he's like,
Like a garbage pail kid.
He goes down. Now let me pour your soda. Rest is all ice.
Yeah.
Ice, maybe. Thank you for that. Trying to get the last of the chocolate out of my coffee here. You're a Mick Long Pig. Then they all gather together like ghouls watching you.
Yeah.
Is he going to take the bite? And you go, good. I'm addicted to eating human flesh. It's delicious. Thank you, elites. You're wonderful. You're too good to us. And they're like, yes. Gooble, gobble, one of us. The Long Pig King. Mick Long Pig. KF Long Pig. Long Pigbies. All the same, right? It's all the same. All these people that go missing every year. Have y'all...
D says McDonald's.
Have you seen the... I'm not going to say the... I'm going to call it the KPC. Have you seen the KPC chicken commercial? Have you seen this? Where they actually fry the person, the human? You haven't seen it?
Mm-mm. I've just heard about it. I haven't seen it. I don't think I want to see it.
Somebody says, I stopped watching Nosferatu 10 minutes in. Good choice. He ends up shriveled up, and he has no butt, and he's just like a skeleton.
That movie was a little too weird.
It was weird, and it was just too... It was like a ripoff of Dracula. Like if you ordered Bram Stoker's Dracula off Wish, that shows up. Everything the same. It was all the same.
When the main role too was just kind of like overdone with the voice.
Yeah, it was just too stupid.
Annoying.
And all of a sudden, like how did this woman just cry out? And now this is the after hours, folks. If you want to leave. I get it. But yeah, there's no butt. It's like he's just his tailbone, and it just looked weird. It was like he was shriveled up, and he had like his. It was just so weird looking. And then why do we need to see that? Spoiler alert! It sucked. It's so bizarre because like she's just like I got really horny, and I cried out to the darkness, and you over there in Transylvania, you heard me. Really? Because bullshit. What are you talking about? He was like, what is that? A horny female in heat? I am there, bro. And then he just shows up, like I mean, it was, I don't get it. Like, what was she? Was she crying? What was she doing? She just like, like cats.
Yeah, her part was like overacted too. Just weird.
Didn't make any sense.
She's not a very good actress.
And not. Have you noticed that women in movie? I don't know about guys because I don't judge guys, but I would assume it's the same. But with women, they're not good looking. They show these weird, and the men, I guess you could say, yeah, they're all weird, skinny, and effeminate.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even if they're not, like they get weird looking dudes like Vin Diesel. I've always thought it's just like a weird looking dude.
Weird looking dude.
Like if I was a woman and like you were trying to sell me on Vin Diesel, I would kind of be insulted and be like, "What are you?"
Women say that he's very attractive.
Dude looks weird. He looks like a naked mole rat.
He's so weird looking, man. And he's claimed like all these different racial ethnicities. Like he's claimed that he's Italian. He's claimed that he's black. He's claimed that he's native. You're like, what are you, dude? You're just, I'm every race mixed together in a blender. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Good for you. What religion are you? I'm every religion mixed together in a blender. Really? What gender are you? I'm man. Sometimes.
All of them.
But I'm also sensitive when I need to be. Yeah. Okay, dude. Die Guys says men say he's attractive too. Okay, I'll let you call that. He Kamala Harris now. Yeah, that's probably, I mean, it's whatever. So here it is. Elastic Machinery says, I like the movie. And him hearing her call out, she's in trance as kid was a super aspect. So there. How did he find her in a trance as a kid? I don't.
It just like they didn't do a good job giving a reason like why she of all people was like basically assigned this Nosferatu's obsession. It doesn't make sense.
Does live in the homosexual. Chris Pell, I haven't heard that. Well, I'm not gonna put what in the heck. I don't know. Weird. I like a variety of men. I don't mind a pretty boy. I don't know. I wouldn't. As somebody says, I heard he was. What isn't that Hollywood anyway? That's why it's Holly weird.
Yeah,
they're all a bunch of weirdos. I mean, he's going to be like what 70 next week, and he's going to be doing the Fast and the Furious 22. He comes out, and he's like, like Mr. Diesel. What did we say about holding in Mr. Dookie? He just did it. He's like, whoa. Bitch, get out the way. Pooped him. That's he's gonna be in his walker. Let me get in this scat pack Dodge. I'm gonna go crazy on your whole ass. That's gonna be him eventually. He's gonna be so whatever. It'll be interesting though, right now. Okay, so we got about let's say we have 30 minutes here. The time. Let's open up if somebody wants to jump on. Just let them jump on. And we're not going to tell stories, but if you want to ask questions or talk about your theory on what we just talked about, or if you want to make jokes, be my guest. Go ahead. Come on. This is a live stream, too. Remember. Sigma Wolf says they're going to be racing in power scooters with Nos. With Nosferatu. That's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to be.
I think the best vampire movies are the ones where they're getting killed.
Pretty much. Remember, folks, the only good vampire is
like there's Lost Boys,
Jeez.
And then Blade, And isn't like Underworld like the vampires are like the protagonists or something?
The Underworld?
Yeah. Or are they the bad guys?
I've
I
only
don't
seen
remember.
2 Underworld movies because I've tried to watch and they were just so damn awful. I just couldn't get into it. These little scrawny vampires are taking these humongous werewolves and they're like, "Eh," and the werewolves are dying, and you're like, what? That 8-foot, 9-foot tall killing machine was just unalived by Beth, what's her name? Beckinsale, Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale, yeah.
And you're like, I'm the death dealer. Get out of here, okay? Shut the front door with this. You know you're not, okay? You're not dealing anything. It's so stupid, dude. Like walking around these high heels, and these werewolves are like, and they're just like, dude, that is some sissy ass dude's fantasy.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a nerd, I'm weak, and I'm so weak, and I'm you know what that means. And it's that, and I can't talk to, and women hate me. I've tried the gay thing. I don't know if I can make it like that. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna empower this scrawny little weak, and they're gonna annihilate these big jocks. That's what those werewolves are. They're big jocks. And they're going to die easily by my sexual fantasy. I'm a dork. I'm a dork, and people have made fun of my big nose, and they've broken it, and I wear glasses. I do this all the time. But I'm smart. I know things. I'm smart. Big people, strong people are not smart. Let me tell you something. If you were super, super duper intelligent, you would go and become strong.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I used to work out with a guy. He was a super smart guy.
Because what is so damn smart about being weak?
Yeah, and he told me, he says, the reason I got
about it
big is because I'm smart. And they asked this on this thing they had the other day, one of those questionnaires on the Facebook. I showed you
yeah.
And it was they were like, would you want to talk to animals? Would you like to learn every language? And then they had all this other stuff. What did I tell you I chose?
To read and write in every language.
Read and write in every language. You know why? Very simple. It's very simple because with that knowledge, and if you could absorb all that knowledge, then you could do anything. You would become a billionaire. You could become the strongest person on the planet. Let me tell you something. Knowledge is power. And that's why Jesus tells us, my people die for lack of it. You will die without knowledge. So I would suggest to you to get on board with learning. Self-educate. You don't have to be a college graduate. I'm not. I dropped out and became successful. And you can too. So if I were you, that's what I would do. That's what I would choose. That's what I chose, was to learn every language, because then you can read and write. You can read all these texts, all these, and I think it was like you could read and write in every language ever, whatever. So you could, that was the question. That was one of the things. So with that, the knowledge you were given, you could just knock it out of the park. You could do anything with that knowledge. You have the knowledge now. Solomon chose wisdom. So Paranormal Oz says too many people on the bus. You won't hear me well. Okay. Brand 47 says, say no to the Neuralink. Tell us why.
Oh, it's not the brain implant. It's a terrible idea.
Now, Robert, I actually did go to college. I didn't finish. And I didn't learn doodly squat there. I argued with my professors every day until one of them turned me into the dean and said, this she got real easily like this. It's just like, look, I'm not gonna argue with you every
Um, Nowadays, I would say the opposite to someone. I would say, "Hey, you're pretty smart for someone who went to college."
Yeah, exactly. Another thing about that particular professor, she tried to make me go to a gay strip club as part of our
Oh wow!
curriculum.
Could have sued
And
her.
I said, no, 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 I'm not gonna do it. And she was just like, well, then I'm gonna have to fail. And I was like, okay. And then when she talked, that's why I think that's what just when I heard Camel Toe talk, it was the same.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, that's what I heard. And I just was like, Mrs. Torres, brother,
What is this, brother?
what is this, brother? Then I had this other professor who was this tall from the floor. He was like, he comes out and goes, my name is Mr. Goldberg.
College professors are some of the worst
He had
people ever.
hair right here. It was all curled out and no hair on top. And then when I was talking to him about something, I don't remember what it was, he was like, why are you staring at my head? I'm like, I thought I was being punked, you know? I was like, what?
The top of your head is in my face.
I'm
You're
like,
so short.
it's glaring on me. That's it. This conversation's over. And he walked off back to Munchkin Lands. I was like, okay, well, obviously these people are not going to give me a fair shake. I'm not, oh shit, what they are. And one guy's like, being smart doesn't make you right. And I was like, having a damn degree that says you should be telling me things doesn't make you right, but I have to play the game so I can get a degree. And I just said, I can't do this. Bought these expensive books, even back then, $40. This was back in the 90s. And so you're paying $40, $50 for a book. And then, I went and I just threw them in the trash.
College is such a scam, dude. So each student pays for 4 years, probably at least like over $100,000. And you still have to buy your own books and supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell are these colleges doing with the money?
Well, look at my
Nothing.
friend. Look at Jack.
Just sticking it in their pockets.
One of my friends, I have a few friends named Jack. One of them's a chiropractor, but he will be paying $600 a month until like 20 or no, I think he's done now. Because this was like years ago, and he said it was 2025. He paid it for like 12 years or something, 13 years.
Yeah. Like I remember even over at ACC, like you would go into the library and they would charge you like 10 cents to print off stuff. I'm going like, what the hell are we giving you money for?
And Machinery says, being right doesn't make you smart.
Yeah.
And Tony says having a degree doesn't make you smart. Yeah, well, not really. What makes you intelligent is your ability to retain and disseminate knowledge, and the accumulation of knowledge is very important, because that's a thing too. A lot of people, some people don't aspire to learn anything. They don't want to learn anything. It's like they're allergic to learning things. And because the more you learn, the more responsibility you have as a citizen of this country, of this world. You really do. The Orthodox Christian faith is very unique in one way. Like and one of the things that I like about it, they believe that the more you know that you're exposed to and you learn, you have to be accountable for that.
Mm-hmm.
Once you know all these things, you have to tell it. You have to say it. You have to be accountable for what you've learned. And a lot of religions, they don't make you do that. They're like, you can know all this stuff and not help nobody, not do nothing for nobody. There's one religion in particular that like absolutely does the opposite of helping or doing anything for anybody. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Scorpions here. What's up, man?
Yo, what's going on? Yeah, you're sitting there talking about what makes people intelligent, and I can tell you that it's not degrees, because I was watching something on YouTube where they had this group of 5 people rate themselves on who they think had the highest IQ, And there was this one girl who said that she had this degree, that degree. She worked in a science manufacturing company making products for COVID or whatever. And there was another guy who was like just military, didn't have a college degree. She said that he was gonna have the lowest IQ. Turns out she had the lowest IQ, and that guy she was talking about had the second highest IQ.
What a shock there.
Yeah. And I just thought that was real funny that I.
Well, you remember you, me, and who else was it? D, Roger, and yeah, we all took an IQ test. Do you remember what mine was at that time?
I think the one you took, I think you had like a 161?
At that time, yeah, it was like 161, something like that.
Yeah,
and yours was
trying. I made a 110.
No, yours was 120, which wasn't bad. It was above average. It was 120.
I didn't even take it serious.
Yeah. 161 is actually that is the mid range of the IQ. My highest was 167. They say that it's way above genius, but I mean, I don't know. Am I a genius? I don't know. I don't really care to be rated or whatever. But I remember Roger. Remember his was like 172. He was smarter than me, guys.
Yeah. Roger was hella smart, man.
Remember we went to the Scientologist to do it.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to learn about your fees? And we're like, see you later.
That little Scientology place next door to the arcade on the drag.
Yeah. We went to La Fun. We were down there. We were at La Fun playing games. And you remember, it was a Street Fighter 2 tournament, remember?
Yeah.
I could always win if as long as Chad McGregor wasn't down there. He was the one kid that could beat me, man. And so and when he quit going to the Union and playing, that's the arcade, that's where they had the contest at. And then La Fun started having them back in the 90s, back at the UT. Yeah. And so we went down there to the Union, and I won a tournament. And remember, that one tournament, I won $1,000.
Yeah.
It was Mortal Kombat. Was it Mortal Kombat 2? I think it was MK2.
Yeah, it was MK2, and that wasn't at La Fun. That was further down the road at the
other Einstein's.
Yeah.
Einstein's, yes. Yeah, yes. I won that tournament. I won $1,000, and we were like, we got $1,000. Like, you remember, like back in the '90s, we were just like $1,000 just to play
a lot of money in the '90s, man. $1,000 was money.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's like, dude, because it was just to play a video game, and we were like, wow, $1,000 just to play a video game, and now they got people streaming it. But do you remember Roger? Roger was talking. He said one day, people are going to be doing this for a living on the internet. And it was like something we couldn't even fathom back then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. And he's right, too, because now people, they make millions of dollars doing these video game tournaments like that, man.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. People actually make a living off of being a gamer.
Loki did. Can't hate him for it. He was, he was at Game Republic and they're playing all the time. And then he started his own channel and he was making, hundreds of dollars a day. And to his credit, he quit and just started working on, his farming and ranching,
Yeah.
With the sheep and the goats and all that. But he could have kept doing that. And but he said he got tired of it. He got bored of it. It was like every day he had to just sit there and play video games.
Right.
And talk trash to kids. These teenagers, you're a poo-poo cockhead. I totally moon dreamed your mom. It's like, dude, okay, whatever. But when I was down there winning those tournaments and man, I was good. Marvel versus Capcom, I won that tournament at La Fun. I won the one at the Union. I won the Mortal Kombat 2 at Einstein's, and I won the Street Fighter 2 Hyper. Was it the Hyper Edition? Whatever it was, Hyper.
Yeah,
I won that one.
Didn't you come in third doing a Tekken tournament too?
You got to bring that up, man. Why you got to bring third place up? See, that's what I'm talking about. You always be hating, man.
No, I'm not hating. I'm just saying.
Didn't you come in fifth place?
No, third place out of what was it? Almost 300 people that were playing in a Tekken tournament on an arcade.
300. It was over 100. It was 100 people. It was like 100 people, and I came in third place. But you had to bring it up. Like, why did you say that? Because
it doesn't matter what game it was. You always did good in those tournaments, whether you won them or not.
Yeah, I did good. Yeah, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. There it is. Thank you, Brand. I was sitting there going like that. I was trying to remember the name. Yeah, and they used to give you a T-shirt. you know. And I remember I was so proud to win that MK2, and the shirt was like it's like 2 sizes too small.
Yeah.
And I was wearing it downtown because back then I was not fat. I didn't have no. I was just, you know, and that shirt was like a shimmer.
No, you weren't fat, but you were still like a 2X, weren't you at that time?
Yeah, I was big. I was big, dude. Like
Yeah, the biggest they had was a large.
yeah, they gave me an extra large, and I was like I was about a 2X.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I weighed about 285, and I had a little bit of a gut down at the bottom, you know, but I was like, you know, massive. Remember when we were at Costco and I put on that shirt and I was like, yeah. And those women were like, "You look good." There was that black lady.
Yeah.
I was like, "Where are you from?" She goes, "I'm from Louisiana." And she goes, "I see people dressed like that all the time." I was like, "Holy shit."
She probably does, I think.
She goes, "I be working at the casino, Kashada, baby. People just be walking in." I was like, okay. I said, "Well, I don't really dress like this. Just I'm just goofing, you know." It's what he goes, "Okay, because I wasn't finna tell you anything. You too big to be arguing with." Yeah. She's like, you kind of look like somebody who'd be at Walmart, you know, just like that. Just like laughing. No, it was just you know, that shirt. I just was so proud to wear it. So I was walking around like, you know, Mortal Kombat 2 champion, whatever. Had Goro on there or something, or Kentaro or somebody, and then it just like it was like up over my belly button, and I was like, "Ooh," you know, like, I'm like, "Why are you looking at my belly button?" And they're like, "Because you're exposing it to us, sir. That's why." And why are you dancing around with glow sticks? And I'm like, "I like being on the dance floor and being me." And they're like, "Sir, this is a 7-Eleven. Can you please leave? You've been here for 2 hours throwing soda and coffee everywhere." Entertaining, but disgusting. Yeah. So, and yeah, I thought I looked cute in that shirt. And then y'all took a picture of me. Sorry, dogs. And I was laying there like asleep on my side, and the shirt was all raised up on me. And it was like the sleeves were like, it was like up here, you know. And Squid's like, "This is what happens when you know, you think you go to sleep thinking you look good or something. You think you look better than you do." Remember that whole feud started, and then we started like, we had a poster board in our old place. Remember that, Scorpion? And what we used to do, we used to draw cartoons of each other. Don't get graphic, don't be gross, because we were bachelors. And so we would sit there and we would just dog each other out, dog each other's girlfriends out. And it was horrible, dude. Like we would just, so I had these little figures, right? They were the Universal monsters, and one of them was the Phantom of the Opera. Remember that? Remember that one, Scorp? Yep. So I stuck it in the bathroom. We had this medicine cabinet below the mirror. There was like a mirrored medicine cabinet, and I stuck the little Phantom of the Opera figures on top. And Squid's girlfriend at the time was named Brittany, but she called her Britt. And I said, "Britt action figures, collect the whole set." And I hear him go in the bathroom. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's real cute." And I hear him knock him off, like, you know. And then I come in there. I'm like, "Something wrong?" And he's like, "No, everything's fine. No, it's cool, you know." He goes, I don't know. The girl you were dating, though, I thought I saw some chin hairs or something, you know, maybe she might, you know, want to shave or something." And he made up some kind of crap. And I was like, "So she's got a high testosterone drive, dude." That just means she's like, you know, she's down, dude. What are you mad about? You can never get, you know, y'all tried to get me so many times, and you couldn't do it. I just come back, man. You just keep on going, dude. And then Squid was dating a girl. She wasn't underage, but Squid, get this, Squid was like in his 30s, and his girlfriend was like 19, 19, right? And D, don't even try to lie. D, she was pretty, so D was jealous. But D started dogging him out, and he's like, "Well, I'm not going to," huh? What? He goes, "I'm not going into like high schools and trying to go to prom with girls and stuff." And Squid got so mad. He goes, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, well, what about the Red Scare?" He started talking about the girl he was dating.
Oh, God.
She was so red. You know, you're just like, what the freaking heck? Just she had freckles all over. I mean, it was just, and she was, and I wouldn't have cared, but she was not friendly at all.
No, she wasn't.
Yeah, and Pete called her the Red Scare. And remember, she would sit there on the couch and she wouldn't talk to us. She would just do this. and we started calling her Sling Blade. We didn't know if she could speak, and like fried taters, Diablo. And then and then we had who else did we have that was around at that time? Oh, Word to Your Mother.
Oh, good God.
Remember her?
That was Jerome, wasn't it?
Do what?
That one was with Jerome, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that was D's too.
That was
No,
another D.
Jerome dated that woman that was like 55 or something. Remember that? Because he goes, player. The Jerome is black, but his mother was from Germany. His dad was an American soldier. And Jerome would have he's a black guy with this real thick German accent. He's like,
oh yeah,
player, I got to do what I got to do. I don't have a ride. I'm just using my tennis shoes. Hey, you remember when he bought that book about hypnotism? Do you remember that? And he tried to sell us on the idea. So then Willie tried it at the club and got slapped.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Oh gosh. And then Willie tried to blame it. He's like, that's why I don't date black girls, because they mean. I was like, you're trying to hypnotize her and you're trying to tell her all this stuff. And she's like, what? So it was, and we're over there like, this isn't going to work. Okay. And she smacked him, And Willie was black too. He was from Lake Charles, but I mean, and he said, damn man, whatever. And that girl that he dated, boy, she was rotund, very, very large mammal and very angry. And she was always screaming and yelling at him all the time. And she had these kids, and the kids, there were stepkids. They were always taking his jewelry. And one of them took his ring, remember, and he tried to smash it with a hammer.
Yeah.
And he was like 14 or 15. And so Willie was chasing him around the house. I go over there to pick him up. We're getting ready to head downtown. And he's chasing this kid around. The kid had a hammer in his hand. This is a weird story. And Willie tackled him in the front yard and spanked him with a belt. I'm not kidding. This kid was like 15 years old and he's getting spanked with a belt in the front yard. Willie's spanking this kid. And the kid's flailing around with a hammer. And I'm like, what? And she's over there. Don't be touching my son. Don't be hitting my kids. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. She was a white woman, but she was just humongous, and she was so obnoxious,
Couldn't stand
it. She talked the way she thought that was black, But how do you talk black? You don't. There's just people talk that way, And she was all like, Willie didn't even talk like that. And I remember one day Willie was like, "Why do you talk like that?" Like, it's like, what do you? You weren't raised around us. You weren't. What do you? Why are you talking like this? He goes, "I don't talk that way. The kids don't talk that way." It was so exaggerated and stupid. It was just like, whatever. It's like annoying. And then there was this one guy that was our neighbor, and every day he was trying to bring stuff to sell because he was on crack, and he was trying to get me and Scorpion to buy a thing of diapers, of Pampers. You remember that?
We had no need for that. And he kind of said, "What the hell?"
Just like, what do you need? What do you do? He knocks on the door, and D's like, "Oh, this guy's probably peddling his baby clothes," and the dude was bringing us like he tried to sell us a tricycle, and the front wheel was bent. And I'm like, what do we get? He's like, come on, man. It's a tricycle, man. It works, man. I'm like, and to prove it. So Squid goes, "Hey, go, sit on the tricycle and ride it around. Show us." He's a little skinny Mexican dude, right? So he starts like,
God. He actually did it. Yeah, he actually
did it. Right. And he started riding in circles, but the front wheel was, or maybe he bent it. I don't remember. I was probably drunk or something. And I'm out there, and I'm just like, we're barbecuing, and we're all laughing. I feel terrible now.
Yeah.
And I look back on it, and there's things that I feel bad about making fun of people.
That's just the difference of who we were to who we are now. So
yeah, we were hard on each other. But I was going back to something, folks. This is something I want to say. We all grew up hard. That whole gang of guys that we were, there was not one of us that was born and raised in a nice, comfortable house.
Nope.
We were all raised pretty rough trade. It was, you grew up on Montopolis, and folks, you don't realize that's a gangland. I used to box over there. And
we had the Bloods, Kings, Crips, and EGV out there.
EGV. I remember EGV, and I remember they were always fighting with the bros from the east side.
Yeah.
And then there was Fairway.
Montopolis itself would fight with the east side. Everybody who lived
Everybody
in
from
the
Montopolis fought the
would
east
fight
side. Yeah,
with
they
the
used to call
OG.
you guys Montopolis rats. That's what they used to say. The east side hated the Montopolis people.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
dude. But they
Dove
couldn't do it
Springs
to us.
too. Well, Dove Springs became like that became a real bad, ghetto shithole too. While everybody was busy fighting, they just kind of quietly became one of the worst places in Austin.
Yeah.
Was Dove Springs, But that was you were from that area, and I know when you were younger, you had and I'm going to say this on the air, and it's nothing. I want to apologize for the way we were, because to everybody who was back then, because we were rough on each other. And, I remember the first time you had come over and we worked out and whatever, and we had that fish. Remember I made fish?
Oh,
And
yeah, that was good, dude.
You were so happy to get a second piece. And I remember my mother telling me that you were probably, having grown up in Montopolis and from a bigger family, that you weren't used to having second helpings.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. With my mom and dad, we was a family of 6, and my parents, they made too much money for us to go on food stamps and live high on the hog like everybody else that was on food stamps. So
yeah, and your dad worked his
couldn't get
ass
as
off,
much
and your
food.
mother had diabetes, and she was always
My
sick, and
mom,
she couldn't
the
work.
only way my mom tried making money by being the neighborhood babysitter.
Yeah.
Everybody who lives in the hood has that one house where that one parent is like everybody's kids go there after school until the other parents get off work.
Yeah.
My mom was that person, and that's how we made our money, and we didn't always have enough food for anybody to get second servings. So.
And I remember like you when we would go eat at Dorset's, and you would eat those huge trucker steaks, and that was and I told people, I was like, he didn't grow up being able to eat extra food. Nope. But we all kind of grew up like that. I mean, we didn't have a lot, and that's what made us tough though. Like we watched these other people around us just be handed everything by their mommy daddies.
Oh yeah.
And that made us tougher. We were tougher because and that's how we were able to clean their clocks, because they couldn't do it like us, because they didn't grow up hard. They weren't raised up and like we were. We were a different breed.
I mean, growing up, I was picked on a lot when I was in school. But once I started working at the club with you and learning and working out and learning how to defend myself better, a lot of the people that used to pick on me would come into the club, and I would sit there and hand them their backs.
I'm not gonna say their names, but it's funny because you say that, because earlier I was talking to Nelly and Anthony about this. There were 2 brothers, and I'm not gonna say their names, okay? Okay, but there were 2 brothers, and you remember they came to the club, and I was standing there with Salim, and I heard them bad mouthing you and Kenny and talking about how because you grew up without a lot of money, and they were talking about how you used to wear the same clothes, and you didn't have money for food and stuff like that, and they were making a joke about it.
Yep.
And they were Hispanic guys too, but they obviously grew up a lot easier than you did. And I was standing by the bar, and I walked over there to them, and I confronted them, and I said, "Are you talking about my friend? Because that guy works for me, he's my friend, And they were just like, "Oh no, we're just." I'm just saying. I remember when we were in high school, and I told those guys, I said, "You described me. I had to wear the same clothes with I had 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and the same shoes, and it wasn't fun, and I didn't have money for food, and I'd have to sit in the lunchroom." But people wanted to be my friend, and so they would give me food and stuff like that, and sometimes I had money for food, sometimes I didn't. By the end of the week, I was usually broke by Thursday or Friday.
Always had to depend on your friends to help you out with lunch, because you didn't always have money at the end of the week.
That's right. And so I told you, and you were a different person back then. You weren't as ferocious as you became, in your heyday. But I told them, I said, that guy you're talking crap about, I was like, that's my friend. And they're like, well, sorry, whatever. We didn't know he was your friend. So they made it like they were apologizing because you were my friend. And remember, I told you, I said, this was a different time. And I told you, I said, you need to go over there and tell those guys. And you were being nice, and you went up there and you were shaking hands with them and being friendly. And I got aggravated. I was like, you need to make those people respect you. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, go back over there and make them apologize. And when that one wouldn't, I ended up snatching him up and leaned him over the foosball table, and I kind of forced an apology out of him. They didn't come back around after that little altercation because we ended up, getting into it. But then they came back. I saw them in line, and when I came to the door, they were standing there, and Chico was like, "Wait, whoa, whoa!" Chico, he's like 6'6",
Yeah. Big
And
old
everybody-
doors.
big old guy, big guy. From Monterrey, and he was just like he said. He goes, Patron, what do you want to do with these two? And I told him, I said, come here. And I told him, I said, when you go inside, I said, Scorpion's working at the back door. You need to apologize to him. We didn't call you Scorpion back. We called you Gary.
Yeah.
And I said, you hadn't earned your nickname yet. And I said, tell him that you're sorry and you better mean it. So they went in there, and I walked around the other side, and I watched them apologize to you. And after that, they were not a problem with you anymore.
No.
And then years later, after we quit working down there, we'd show up down there. If they were down there, they would buy us drinks, and they treated us with respect.
Oh yeah, there was a couple of others that would go down there, and
A little dwarf.
One of them sat there and started running his mouth to me, thinking that I was the same person, until I turned around and knocked his teeth down his throat.
Yeah, was that at Shadow Lounge?
Yeah.
Was that at Shadow Lounge or Fuel?
That was a Fuel. That was a Fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you remember what I did? There was a guy who was a naval boxing guy. He was a big, tough guy, and I'm not gonna say his name. And I beat him up on my birthday, and he because he did something really horrible to you, he put a scar. It's still to this day, it's kind of faded, but you have a scar on your head because him and his friends jumped you when you tried to defend the DJ and the owner over at So they jumped you, and they put a big cut on your head. And I was at the hospital with Willie and Squid when they were stitching you up, and I told you I was going to get him back, didn't I?
Oh yeah. They gave me, what was it, 7 stitches in my head from that.
Now watch what you say. Make sure you don't say anything mean or bad, because I don't want this,
No. I'm not.
Because I know sometimes we talk about the old days and we start talking. Don't cuss and do all that. Say bad things. But this dude was a big dude. He wasn't no punk. He was a big guy.
No,
when he came into the club, he was about 6'.
He had a reputation for being a tough guy down there.
And when D came running up and told me he was in there, and I was about half drunk already, and I was with the twins. Remember the twins? Mark and Matt?
Oh yeah, the ones from the garage.
Yeah, Mark and Matt, and then I was with them, and then Squid and D and some Big John and somebody else. And I just remember going over there, and I was like, I gave him a shot, and he's over there like, I heard you looking for me. He was getting real testy with me. And I was like, well, I've obviously found you. I was like, here, just take a shot with me. Let's just, let's bury the hatchet, whatever. And he was like, yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, you better, He had a couple of his buddies with him. They're over there looking all hard and acting tough. They think this guy's the baddest dude that's ever walked the earth. And as soon as he put that shit, it was Tawaka. That was my favorite drink. And he put that shot down, and I told him, I said, you remember what I told you? I was like, through our mutual friend, Big Tom. And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, that still stands. He goes, oh, so you're going to try and whoop my ass because of Renee and DJ Kid? And I said, no. I said, it's not because of Kid or Renee. I said, it's because you hit my best friend. You gave him a scar. He said, I didn't do it. One of my guys did. I said, well, whichever one of y'all did it, step up. And he goes, oh, what? Just like he was leaning. He's a big guy, And I said, or this. And I just popped him and threw some hands on him pretty quick, got him down on the ground. And then his buddy, a friend of ours, Marco, he went down on one knee and just kind of did like this.
I'm out of it.
I'm out of it. Yeah, that was the same rules as jail. It was basically you just go on your knee and you say, I'm not involved.
Yeah.
Because Squid and Diablo came out of the shadows and took care of his friends. His friend hit me with a chair. So this guy, he was a big tough guy. So he calls me. He calls me one night when we were going. Remember that? We were driving home, and he tells me, you sucker punch me, fool. I'm going to get you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I said, you're not going to do anything. I said, in fact, you think this was a fight. I said, and back then it was a different ball game. And I said, I'm not like you. You think that we're going to box and we're going to sell snow cones and elote or whatever the hell you think this is. I said, but every time I see you, I'm going to beat the hell out of you. I told him that. I said, every time I run into you, I'm going to fight you until you're unalived. I'm just going to keep going because I'm not fighting. Okay. I'm a gangster. I told him this back in the day. I'm not that way anymore. I promise you, on my hand to God, I'm not.
No.
And my enemies can laugh and joke because you're not in my face. So you can say what you want while you're safe and you're behind your computer and your roaches. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it to everybody that's listening. I told this man, I said, when I see you again, you walk across the street. I'm not fighting you and selling tickets to this. Do you understand? And you were in the truck when I told him that. And I said, do you understand? He said, yeah, Willie was with me. So was D, Squid.
Yeah, you told him, if you see me in the street, you walk across the street so I don't cross paths with you. If I walk into a club or a bar and you're there, you leave.
Mm-hmm. And so what happened?
It would hurt you.
So, yeah. So what happened? About a month later, I walk into Fuel. Now, I'm going to tell this story. I walk into Fuel. He's standing there, and he's a big guy. He's big old dude. And he's over there telling these little bouncers, these little middle-class, goofy kids that are in there listening to him. They're like, wow, golly gee, mister, you're so tough. Wow. And he's like, yeah. And then I told this fool, yeah, you better get out my face. And I'm standing behind him with my arms crossed. Remember that with John Hall?
Yep.
And I was standing, and John was looking at me, and Eric was looking at me, and they were like, the manager and the head of security, and they knew the situation with this guy.
Oh, yeah.
This is a true story. I am not making this up. Scorpion, you were there. And so Will, God rest his soul.
I was there. I was working there at that time.
Yeah, you were working there. And these guys were all enthralled by this dude. And I tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey. And he turns around, and I was like, do you remember what we talked about? And I was like, bye. He's like, well, I'm going to finish my drink, yo. I said, you ain't going to do shit, yo. You're going to go. How about that?
Didn't you take his drink and put it on the bar and say, you're done?
Yeah. Took his drink from him, put it on the bar. Same thing I did to another big loudmouth over at, not Platinum X. God, what was the name of that club that we used to go to on Sundays on 7th on
5th Street.
5th Street. Yes. What was that? I knocked that dude out. No, not Polyester. Polyester was down on the Warehouse District. Jeez, what was the name of that club? Paradox.
Yeah.
Paradox. Yeah, because there was a fight tournament there. I won a fight tournament there. There was 2 of them, but I didn't win the first one. I fought in the second one. One of the guys that became my understudy, Kevin Nunn, won the first one. And that was the first time I ever did amateur MMA. Remember that? Okay. And I had some good hands, man. But this dude, he turned around, right? And he looked at me, and he put his head down, and he walked out with his homie, and they left that bar. And all them bouncers were in shock. They were just like, and I was like, y'all think that guy's tough? I was like, you don't know what tough is. That guy's just a loudmouth who hits people. He did something he should have been in jail for, because when he attacked my friends, including Scorpion, he made my friend's wife have a miscarriage because she was there with him at the DJs, giving him food or whatever when he attacked him.
Yeah.
And so he should have gone to jail for that.
Was that knocking again? Just happened.
You heard the knocking?
Yeah.
So this dude thought he was some bad dude. And, and so I told him, I said, go, get out. And he just walked out. And you heard it again?
What?
That was weird.
That wasn't you?
No.
Thought it was like your ring or something knocking.
No, that was not me. I didn't touch anything.
Because it sounded like, let me check the door.
There's nobody over there. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, he should have been in jail for what he did. And so, bad people get away with stuff all the time. And I know people are going to say, oh, he's talking about whatever. Folks, you have no idea. Back in the day, downtown, there was this awful criminal element down there. And I was, down there in the middle of all that crap. There was a lot of crap. And there were a lot of really bad people. There were some really tough people. I mean, and some of it sounds like almost like some of these dummies that would give us these little monologues, and I would just make a big joke out of it. It was just like, I remember this one guy, the second fight I ever had at that club, this dude told me, he goes, I'll kill a bouncer. That's what it was either I kill bouncers or I'll kill a bouncer. And his friend was dancing around on the dance floor, and he took off his shirt, and he had a tank top jersey on underneath. And it was a strict rule. We were trying to keep all that crap out. No jerseys, and he had it was a tank top. No tank tops, no jerseys. It was both. Yeah. And you weren't working there at that time, Scorp. You don't remember this, but I went up to that guy.
But that rule, that was one of the rules we had when I was
always like that. The owners were strict about that, and they were Lebanese guys, and so they were gangsters, And so I went up and I told, and this was when I was new there. I'd had one altercation with these people because I was down to my last dollar, and these guys knocked my pizza out of my hand because they were in a frenzy beating up some poor kid. And so they forced me. At that time, I just wanted to just mind my business. I don't want to fight these people, but they slapped my pizza up in the air, and so I got into a fight and ended up doing something really bad to one of them. But this was about a month later or something, and I was there, and it was right before I became the head of security. And this guy was huge, a big guy, man. He was a big dude, big tough guy. And I probably weighed in about 260 about that time. I wasn't a giant. Some of these guys were 300-pound monsters, and everybody down there was on roids and stuff, and there were all these people doing just all kinds of drugs and stuff. It was a bad place. And that guy, he tells me, he goes, "Nah, dog, I ain't trying to hear all that. Go talk to my man. Go talk to my man over there, man." He goes, "That's my bodyguard." And his bodyguard guy steps up, and he's like right up against my arm. And I'm like, "What do you want, dude? I'm trying to get this guy to," he goes, "Yeah, I know. Why you messing with my homie? Why you messing with my little homie?" I said, "Because he's against the rules. He needs to put his shirt back on." I said, "And the owner's right over there, and he's watching me, and I don't want to lose my job." And I was new, and I'd probably been there about a month and a half. And I said, "Can you get your little homie to put in?" "Oh, you trying to get smart? Because I'll kill a bouncer. You think you a bouncer?" And I'm like, dude, I had to turn and just whip this dude's ass with lightning speed because he was a big guy, strong guy. I found out later on that he was known for being a really, bad, tough guy, whatever. His name was Percy Jarvis or Jarvis Percy or something like that. He had a weird name. Jarvis Percy, JP, they called him. And he bounced over to Brados because I remember fighting him again when all them big knucklehead roid heads came out. And they tried to jump Willie, so I went over there because Willie won a breakdance contest. Because back then, breakdancing wasn't big like it was in the 80s, but Willie was really good at it. So Willie went over there, and Starscream was with us that night. And Willie was breaking, and he won this contest. And the prize wasn't a big deal. It was like $100. And so we went up to the bar, and we said, "Hey, can we get the $100?" And that bartender's like, "Nah, I can't do that." And I'm like, "Why not?" And they're like, "Man, y'all need to go. You Roxy guys, you can get the F out of here. Get the F out of here, man. F you. Get the F out of here." They start talking to us like that. Like you're a piece of shit, like, "Go get the F out of here before we whoop your ass." All these big roid-headed guys come walking up like, "Ooh," and I'm just like, okay. And we ended up out in the street. And, dude, I went to work on them, dude. I got hit. I'm not invincible. But, dude, they didn't knock me down. And there was 6 or 7 of them throwing hands with 3 of us. And so, the streets out there learned a valuable lesson about who and what we were. That's the truth. My hand, I'm not even joking. That's what really happened. And, people can say what they want about it, the old days, but there were a lot of witnesses to what I did. And I defended myself and I defended my people, and I didn't back down. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you beat bouncers or eat whatever you went over. And some people say bouncers are bullies. Yeah, I knew some bouncers that were bullies. I wasn't a bully. When you did things that you weren't supposed to be doing, and I had people that would just flaunt themselves and taunt me, and they would force your hand, and I was just pretty calm for the most part, laid back. I just lean on the wall, dipping my snuff. I used to dip snuff, and I just sit there with my dip in my mouth. And I tell these people, "Look, I don't want to have to take my dip out and fight you. Just leave me alone and just follow the rules, and there's not a problem." But they'd come in here with these entourages and these big thugs that they would hire, and they would, selling some dope or something, and they'd be like, "Yeah, man, kick his ass," and they're like, "It's cute or funny or cool." And I'm like, "Yeah, kick my ass. Go ahead, do it." Because you're not. It's not going to happen. And they never struck fear into my heart. There was none of that bullshit. There was all these people that thought they could punk you or make you scared. So, yeah, John Maddox says Corn Pop is trying to save those kids from Creepy Joe. Well, that's just Scorp dropped out. There's Scorp. He's back. And James Jones is here. What's going on, James Jones? What do you got?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man. What's up?
Sorry, man. My voice is a little messed up. A little bit under the weather, man. How you doing?
Sorry to hear that, bro. I'm doing good. How about you?
Yeah, don't be catching COVID up in this day and age.
Nah.
Well, if you do, the hospital is probably the last place you want to end up.
Oh, yeah.
Nah, me and you've had some like past issues and shit, and I'm here to squash that shit, man.
Me and you?
Yeah. You used to know me as James Graves.
Oh, James.
I'm that guy, man.
Yeah.
I'm here to
Are you
squash
here
it,
to
bro.
you here to squash it or you here to threaten me again?
Here to squash it, bro. Here to squash it. That's why I'm here, man. That's why I gave you $2. Said, hey, what's up, man? Excuse me.
So why
yeah.
would you come and squash it? Tell me what changed.
Nah, I just ain't got no more beef with you. I got beef with other people, not you. So
Well, beef will give you constipation, brother. You got to drop it at some point.
that's why you got to take some X-Lax, man. Make everything smooth.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I
I'm
do
glad
like
to hear that we're.
Yeah, it's good, man. Go ahead.
No, I said I'm glad to hear that we're copacetic.
We're good, man. But like, sometimes people want to talk crap behind the scenes on me and all this shit. And it's like, or excuse my French right there. But yeah, sometimes they want to claim I said something or whatever. It's like, if I got something to say, I'm going to say it. That's why I joined the show. I got nothing to hide or anything like that. And as far as me and you are concerned, I'm cool. So from here on out, it's like, whatever, man. Like I said, I donated and all that good stuff. And I hate that my voice is like this, but like I said, I'm sick, man. So, but
So,
no.
James, let me ask you a question. I mean, like,
ahead.
everybody's got a pass. I got a pass. We're talking about it right now, and it's not a
Oh, yeah.
bragging thing. It's just the truth. Are you a Christian? Are you saved?
My issues with Christianity are kind of in between. I don't like most modern churches because of what they do. I don't know if you're familiar with the church that decided to wrap up a Bible in football skin, and they literally kicked that Bible like it was a football.
No, I'm not.
What the hell?
Yeah, there's a video out there. You can actually search it on YouTube. Church did that. And then you got like your local churches, town churches and stuff that, they're all over the place. They don't know which Bible to read from. They don't know what they're doing. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. And, I believe, that we should learn to forgive and, all of that, because that's what Jesus would want us to do. And that's part of why I'm here right now. And, it's like, I'm sick and tired of the fake and the phonies out there. And you got, like I said, a lot of preachers out there telling you, oh, if you do this, you're going to hell. If you do this, you're going to hell. So basically you're telling me that Jesus meant nothing, that no matter if we sneeze wrong, we're going to hell. That's how some of these preachers believe.
Yeah,
and it's
I
like,
agree.
no,
There's a
I'm
lot
not
of
down
fake
with that.
blogs out there.
And
So let me ask you a question, James. Have you accepted Christ as your, like, have you accepted Christ? Because I mean, that's the linchpin of a lot of things. It can change your heart. My heart was completely different when I was a younger person than it is now.
I ain't trying to get too graphic or anything like that with my life, but and excuse me again, but when I grew up, life was kind of like what you guys are saying. It's not as probably maybe as extreme, but there was gangs and stuff. Because there was one gang you mentioned, I never heard of that one, but I live over here in the Southeast. But I've heard of La Familia. I've been around, Bloods, Crips, all of those, Latin Kings. We got those. We even got some Asian gangs. And, the first time I ever seen a pit bull puppy was because literally, there was a drug deal going on and they were wanting to get some pit bulls to guard their stuff. So they were going to raise them up from pups and do that. And, I was around that type of life, and you can literally see the areas where I grew up and you can tell, yeah, that's some bad areas. That's not good areas. And some of them are in Virginia because my grandmother lived up in Virginia, of course, North Carolina, and, places like that. And it was hard times. and I seen a lot of things I shouldn't have seen. And I got on drugs. I got on alcohol. Matter of fact, um, there's some weird videos out there of me because I was doing drugs and alcohol, and I had some hackers, and they caught me when I was, doing some stupid stuff, and I was on drugs and alcohol. So, and to anybody, I would say get off the drugs, get off the alcohol. It ain't gonna give you anything except problems. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you came on and talked. I
man, like
really,
I said,
I don't hate you. I don't have any. I mean, people say things about me all the time. That's every day, and I have to turn it and forgive and keep going. I don't have a choice.
excuse me. But yeah, you know, I definitely believe in God. I believe in Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And in my life at this current moment, I am definitely changing a lot of different things. There's some people I got some beef with, but as far as me and you or anybody in this side of the internet, nah, I'm good, man. So,
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of people that have, had problems with people in this whole thing, and you just you go to your side, I go to my side, and we just, don't mess with each other.
Yeah.
And I don't hate you. I don't. I prayed for you. I did, and I'll pray for you again. I'll continue. I hope
thank
that
you.
you are sincere. I hope it's sincere. I mean, I certainly don't hold any ill will. I don't have it in me to hate anymore. I used to hate with a passion, and I don't. I can't hold those anger, whatever. I'm not that guy anymore.
Yeah.
But what happened though to make you change? Like what do you think what did it?
Well, number one, having having some weird people messing with me and stuff. And that kept me angry. And eventually I had to basically fight through it. And I've gotten to a point now where it's like, I believe God is trying to literally help me. And, you know, I've lost some family recently. And my aunt's not doing too good. And there's just so much going on. And then, I was kind of wanting to, save this for later, but it's like, there's an opportunity for me to talk to you. So even though I sound sick and stuff like that, I'd rather take this opportunity to be like, hey, man, any beef we got, anytime anybody wants to run behind the scenes and talk some smack and, give fake audio recordings or whatever this is, don't believe them. And just understand if I got a problem, I'm going to be right here. I mean, if I can stand here, and talk to you as sick as I am, then I think I can talk to you anytime. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, I'm just going to be upfront and honest with you. And yeah, man, I got no beef with you. And, through losing family, through losing everything, going through everything I've been through, and more and more and more, it's just more stuff has made me go, yeah, there's, some people I'm going to probably always have beef with, but you're not one of them. So,
Well, I appreciate that. It's always good to have one less enemy.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, James. So, how long have you struggled with drug and alcohol addiction?
oh, that goes back to first time I ever tried anything. I was 13 years old. And, that was just simple, like most everybody else, just trying marijuana. Marijuana turns into this, that, and the other. And I'm not going to say too many names because I don't want to get you in trouble or your show messed with or anything, But, yeah, and then the worst of it came when my brother, who he ended up taking his own life. And I'm going to put it that way. Hopefully YouTube ain't going to have a hissy fit over it. But yeah, he took his own life. And that's when I started drinking heavy, doing drugs, messing up, and you get caught on that road, and you hate everybody, you hate everything. And people were so sweet to me when my brother died. And they would be like, oh, it's going to get better. And the minute somebody would say, oh, it's going to get better, I literally felt my fist clench up, and I'm ready just to do something. Let's put it that way. And it's like, I'm not putting up with somebody telling me it's going to get better. It was in 2007 when it happened, and I'm still not over it. I'm never going to be over it. And I hated everybody, and I hated everything. And only through God have I been able to get off drugs. And, I had some other addictions, adult addictions, and I'm not somebody who's just going to hide and lie about anything. I'm just going to be straight up. And it's like, yeah, man, I was an average adult. And you start, looking at things you shouldn't and getting too in deep with things that you shouldn't in this world. And you start going, yeah, man, this is not the road I want to go. I want to be on a better path. This is not the path I want to, go on, the drugs, alcohol, all that other stuff. I don't want to do that. I mean, when you have an enemy who literally hacks into your computer and your, security camera at your house just to monitor you, and then starts going around the internet talking stuff, it's like, yeah, he's using that to try to get people to hate on me, get me to hate on other people. And I'm not dealing with that no more. So, and to you as well, I forget your name, bro, but not you, Mr. Turner, but the other gentleman. Anthony.
Well, I mean,
man,
go ahead.
Go ahead, man. No, I was going to say
the reason I ask is because I was going to ask, like, because you said some things about me, you said some things about Nelly, you said some things about Wolf, going to do this, going to do that. And I'm not trying to pick at you about that, but I wanted to ask, when you made those threats and you sent those emails and made these phone calls, were you at that time under the influence of drugs and alcohol? Were you still struggling with those things?
For a time, yeah, I was still drinking a little bit, yes. And that was my issue. And I quit drinking. Trying to remember exactly when, because I know 3 years ago I went to a Cannibal Corpse concert, and I know I was drinking heavy then, because I went to the Atlanta Theater, and they were playing there, and I like all kind of music from ICP to Cannibal Corpse, stuff like that. I'm trying to get away from some of this music, but I still like certain things. And I'm there.
Go ahead.
And yeah, man, they had a bar there, and I was literally, just like leaning against the wall and drinking and drinking and drinking. And the first two bands were what they call black metal bands. And
I know what you're talking about.
One guy comes out, and to me, it's nothing but Alice Cooper wannabes. I'm sorry, but that stuff is just Alice Cooper wannabes. And they come out on stage, and they got upside down crosses and all this stuff, and saying, hail to the devil, essentially. Yeah. And, I'm just kind of like, well, I don't want to, be somebody who's a party pooper. Let's put it that way. I'm just like, yeah, man, ooh, have fun, all that good stuff. And, I'm still in that mode of not really wanting to be a part of that, but not wanting to go against the grain, so to speak. And then finally, Cannibal Corpse comes on, and I'm like, heck yeah. So, and I can do all these type of vocals and stuff, except for when I'm sick. And, matter of fact, you can watch the In Athens concert, and you can hear me, and I do the goring vocal that got George Fisher's attention. And because it was a funny thing that happened, and he called it out, and I was just like, oh, that's too funny. and it was a good night. But then I leave, and I'm literally feeling, I'm not up for this. And I was mixed emotions then. And seeing some of the stuff that's presented itself, such as videos and stuff that of me when I was on drugs and alcohol, it's like I don't want to be that person. I would body slam that person, to be honest. And I'm not trying to, say anything too wild on here, but I can't stand the fact that I would ever let myself get to that point.
I mean, why exactly? Can you pinpoint like a specific reason that you hated us so badly? I mean, like if you were to honestly take a look at it right now and think back, I mean, can you pinpoint anything close to a legitimate reason why you would feel so extremely about, I'm gonna do this and do that to you. I'm gonna do this and that to Nelly. I'm gonna do this and that to Anthony.
No.
Because I've said this before about some of our detractors, that I believe that I honestly believe this in my heart that if you were to just get a chance to talk to any one of these people and sit them down and just ask them one-on-one, can you give me a good reason why you are so determined to see our downfall, that they probably really couldn't come up with something, and that they probably don't even really understand what's driving them, and that they're not really even following their own will, that they're following the will of someone or something else and being manipulated into this extreme negativity, this extreme unnatural hatred,
I mean, there was some reasons that I'm going to just keep kind of on the down low, maybe if we get a chance to talk more privately, then I would divulge that content. But it also started around the time when Vault of Nightmares was around. And, he was seeming to be on your guys' side there for a while. And I always knew the guy as being someone not too good. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of spun from that. And then it just kind of got way more out of hand. And then it just became, then there was the night that you guys came over to another individual's channel. And, then, and certain videos he was showing of Josh. And, it's like there's certain people saying certain things, this and that. And it's like, yeah, I kind of agree with them at the time, and
whose channel did we go to? What are you talking about? What are you referring to?
Is it okay if I say that person's channel name?
I don't. Go ahead.
Because I know YouTube's weird about, if you say other channels' names and stuff.
Well, then give me allude to it then, I guess. Who's?
He was a guy how can I put this? He made several video. In one video, he was making compilations of things you said. And Anthony was in the chat, and you were in the chat, and then Nelly was in the chat. Do you remember that, Anthony?
How long? When was this?
This was a while ago. It was. I mean, if it's okay, I can say the name.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think it'll get us in trouble with any kind of YouTube moderation.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm not trying to be all about that, but Cryptid.
Are you talking about Abe?
No, not him.
Okay,
No. I'm trying, because like I said, I'm trying to be cautious with it because I don't want YouTube striking because I know how.
No, I mean it's fine. You can just say
Well,
the
you're
name of
talking
the
about
channel.
just say, okay, is it Blake?
I think that's his name.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't remember.
The guy with the beard backwards hat.
Yeah, because that
Cryptid
guy. I don't know.
Repository.
Yeah. I don't. I never knew that guy. I never knew why he was doing what he did. He was
I think
making
his channel's called something else.
Yeah,
though.
but we don't need to say his name of his channel. But
Yeah.
it was weird because I don't know that guy. I don't know who he is. I don't know why he went after me and why he started doing what he was doing. I know that one person in particular in this field has a beef with me, and he has for a year and a half. It's been a protracted struggle. I don't know why this guy's got this beef. I know that he didn't like Bettina and Abe, and I stepped up and defended him, and then it started a war that's been going on since forever. I don't know how you got involved, and I don't know how Blake got involved. I don't know what people's roles are in this. I just know that this one particular individual likes to just get a million different accounts and say a lot of different things, and they've even posed as me. But the things that they say are so ridiculous. It's like, who's going to believe this crap? You know?
Yeah, they do that sometimes. They've tried to clone my screen names and stuff before.
They will.
And they would go up in the chat and they'll pretend they're me just to get somebody pissed off at me. Excuse my French. Mad at me. And, they'll try to sit there and proclaim, oh, yeah, I'm really him. It's really me. And I hate you. And all. And it's like, who are these people? I don't even know them. And there's one particular person who does like to go behind the scenes and talk a load of stuff. And he tries to think that he's Mr. Internet Gangster. And you know how internet gangsters are. They're in real life, they're wimps.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to get on a show like this and just talk straight out with you. They're going to be like, no, it's all pranks and it's funny and all this stuff. And just try to tear you down, but yet they can't have an actual conversation with you. I'm sick right now and I'm able to do this. So that should let you know a little bit about my character.
Yeah, a lot of these internet gangsters, even if they do come onto your platform, they're not gonna sit there and have an actual conversation. They're gonna start talking crap or interrupting you anytime you try to talk, so that way you can't get your point across. Try and find a way to resolve this, because all they want to do is hate.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the accusations too, and like I'll put this open invitation to anyone out there, anyone, I don't care, anyone on that side that has a beef with me, we can go to Rumble and we can hash it out right there in front of everybody. I put that out there because I'm not afraid to go toe to toe and talk with anyone about this stuff. I'll bring it out and tell everybody what the truth is, and I'll point out the lies. And I wish these people would have the balls like you did to come up and say what's what, because I know they won't, because they know they're lying, and they'll be dumped a mountain of evidence against them.
The only other person who's ever had the balls to talk to you not face to face, but publicly right here on the platform for everyone to see is Marvin Allen.
Marvin, I respect Marvin.
He's the only one.
And we're still friends to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. And Bettina brokered that piece, and somebody else tried to take credit for it, and that person got, butthurt and was like mad at me for a long time for that. But the truth is the truth. I mean, Bettina's the one that brokered that piece. And there was another guy that tried to stymie it, and he's over there hanging around with this other guy now. And so, we've had our issues with people, but I don't back down and I don't make any, bones about it. I call people out and they don't like it, but I'm not a liar, and I'm not making up things about people because I don't have to. I'll say it outright. And I appreciate you coming on and being a real, I got to wrap this up because I got to run. It's 11:15 here, but thank you for coming on, James. I mean, and telling what you know.
Well, man, like I said, I just wanted to squash this beef and let you know, man, there ain't no hate here. And to you, Anthony, man, for what I said and all that stuff, I do apologize to you, Josh Turner, as well as Anthony Turner. And, I'm sorry to Nelly as well that we ever had any issues. And again, if anybody tries to sneak by, join the Discord or any of this or whatever and claim I said something, just know that people can take AI and they can clone your voice. And if I was you, man, I'd let people know that too, that maybe somebody might having, some stuff like that with you, because they can clone your screen name.
Yeah.
They can do all these things. And it's getting ridiculous nowadays to a point where it's, and just for the sheer fact, yeah, that's my ugly mug. I ain't afraid to show. I just look horrible because I'm sick, like I said, man. But I want you to know it's me, and it may have been a little bit blurred and all that, but I'm still here, and like I said, man,
Well, stay prayed up, James, and don't drink if you can help it, and try not to use anything. And if you can stay, like it says in the Bible, be ever sober. And if you can do that, then I think you'll be fine.
Man, the only thing I drink nowadays is cherry soda. I smoke cigarettes, and I drink water. So that's it, man. But thank you for the time, and may God bless you, Josh Turner, and Anthony Turner, and Scorpion.
God bless you too.
May God bless you.
I'm gonna get out of here. All right.
All right.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, we'll see. So that was interesting.
Did not expect it.
Didn't expect it either. I mean, and we have been attacked, by a lot of different people over the years. But Scorpion has been my best friend since '99. Well, we've been friends. We weren't best friends in '99. We've been a long road.
Yeah.
But we've been friends for a long time.
Going on 26, 27 years now, man.
And I can tell you, folks, I got friends that have been my friend, Loki, Chief. I mean, these guys, I've had issues with them at times when Loki and Chief, we need to pray for them because they still are arguing with each other over stupid things, and they grew up together. I wish they would squash it. And many people have tried to get them to, stop fighting, feuding, whatever. But Chief's got a lot of pride, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got his own, he's got his own thing, and Loki's no punk, and they just very alpha male type people. And I've been friends with these guys for a long time. I met Squid in 1997. I met Willie in 1997. And one day I'd love to go to Rumble and tell you the story about me and Willie and how we became friends. We were collecting money for doing bad things back in the old days. But this is a testament to the strength and power of our Lord that we serve. And I'm going to say this, and if you don't like it, well, Jesus he can change your heart. He can change your life. He can literally take you from being a foul, hateful person, and he can turn you around and turn you into the person that you need to be. All you got to do is accept him. That's it. That's all you got to do. And so many people just refuse to do that. They just won't. They'll try everything. I got a friend. I love him to death. He's in prison right now. He's in prison. And I love him to death. But he's tried everything but Christ. He's been 3 different religions, but he just refuses to be a Christian. And I told him before, I said, until you look at Christ for what he is, your Lord and Savior, and then it's not going to work. Now, he'll say he's a prophet or he's this or he's that, but he won't call him his Lord and Savior. Yeah. I think that is the linchpin. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it is. It changed my heart. I don't have hate in my heart. I don't go to sleep hating these people. I forgive them every night, every day. They actually sin against me every day, every day. There's a group of them that are hardened. They sin against me every day. They say things. One of the things they said that when I broke into that house as a young man, because I was starving, I didn't have any food, that I went in there to stuff my face and to be a glutton. No, I assure you, I was not a fat kid at that time, and there was no food. I hadn't eaten in like 3 days. And so I went into these people's house, and it was my friend Heather, her grandparents. And they took pity on me. They were like, look, they didn't press charges. They told the police they had me. I didn't try to run. I didn't have enough energy to run. I just was like, went back to my house and then they came over with the police because they had already called the police because the mom, the grandmother, she had, my friend's grandmother, she had called. She didn't know who I was at the time. And then she was like, oh, this is the Turner kid, And they told the police, don't worry about it. And he came over and he says, look, young man, if you want food, come eat. He's like, but I have some things I need done if you want to help me. And so I mowed his grass and helped him, do different things. It was a very horrible time in my life. I promise you, I did not break into that house to stuff my face. I would not have done something like that because I'm not a thief. The Scorpion know me as a lot of things, but I'm not a thief.
We detest thieves.
Yeah, my problem was violence. I had a problem with punching, doing things I shouldn't have been doing. I was quick to anger. And I got to the point where I didn't give people a chance to even, and I had to learn patience, and I had to learn, I know this, even if I leave this earth, sooner than later, it doesn't matter. My work is here as a testament to my life. And the things that I talk about are the truth. These things really happen. There are witnesses to what I say. There's a lot of people that can say a lot of things, but they don't have witnesses to what they've done. I can bring you witnesses and sit them right there in those chairs, and they'll tell you what they've seen me do. They've said these things on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm not up here making up stories to be a macho man. I don't need to do that. I have a reputation downtown still to this day.
Yeah.
People remember me. People remember when they see those kind of things. There's some fighters down there that are still down there, and they'll tell you, he's no punk. I'm not. I'm nobody's patsy.
And a lot of the stories that are still going around, you didn't bring them up. Other people are telling those stories still.
Yeah, and then there were other times where people did say stories about me that just were not. They were just absolutely not true. Like the one about me pulling the guy out of the car in front of the police. I never did that. That was like, supposedly I carjacked this gangster and I took his car and I drove it around. And I mean, it was some crazy, wild stuff. And I was questioned about it, not by the cops, but by other people. And I told them, I said that I just was honest. I said that never happened. There's some things people say I did that never happened. I never did any of those things, but some of it I did. There was a lot of it. And, I mean, there's been some situations where, I've had people that owed me favors, and I called in on those favors, because I did things for them, that like helping them with situations. There were some club owners down there. These guys, I'm not going to mention their names. One of them ended up on television. But they had these gangsters threatening them, and they weren't bad guys. Don't say their names, Scorp. But they weren't bad guys. And they didn't know what to do. They were being basically extorted. And they came to me and they said, is this how it is down here? What is the deal with this? And I asked them who it was, and they didn't want to tell me. And I said, look, tell me who it was, because I can probably help you. And they told me, and I went to those people at my own peril, and I got nothing out of it. I didn't ask them for money or anything. And I just said, look, you need to stop. Leave these guys alone. They're just guys. They're just good people. They're not doing anything wrong. And when I mean call in favors, I'm not talking about like I did somebody bad, something bad, evil, whatever. I mean, like I helped people. I really did. I did what I could. There were bad people down there doing a lot of bad things, and I tried to help and protect people as much as I could, because there were sharks down there. And they were not nice. They were not good, but they drew the line. They were tough guys, but I was a tough guy that tough guys didn't mess with. They knew better. They would go around me, and sometimes I had to tell these guys, look, you've crossed the line. You've gone too far, and you're not going to cross it with me. That's just the way it is, And I got a friend of mine who wants to take my stories and write about it and do all this stuff, or, and maybe when I'm older and about to pass or something, I don't know, I'll tell them everything, and maybe it'll be a tell-all. It'll make money after I'm gone or something for the people that I love. But you could interview 1,000 people and they'll tell you the same thing. One thing I can tell you is this: I never stole money from people. I never cheated people. I'm a man of my word. I have integrity. I don't care what these people say. They can lie and twist all they want. Proof is in the pudding.
Yep.
We do the giveaways out of our own pocket. We are actually losing money doing the show. But this is my passion. This is something that I like. This is something I love. And helping people with their stories and things, it's cathartic. You know, like it helps me, you know. All right, folks, I'm going to bail. I'm going to bounce. Scrub, I'm going to let you go, guys. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. You know, the things that go on in your life, the past is the past. You know, move on. That's all you can do. Forgive, right?
Yeah, of course, always.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
Even when it's hard.
Everybody's got a past. A lot of people
Yeah.
like to hide it and pretend like it never happened, but those people are liars. You know, God takes you and he lifts you up and Christ redeems you. I got to go, guys. I got to run. I got work calling me. I'll see you later, man. Goodbye.